What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with me, your host. My name is Chad Medved. This is my podcast, and it is super awkward doing this intro while my wife is sitting on the couch just staring at me making faces. That's what I have to deal with every week whenever I'm making these intros for you guys. So I hope that you can appreciate what I do. And if you do appreciate it, please, on the podcast app that you're listening to this on right now, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Apple Podcasts, hit the subscribe button. Please leave me a rating and a review, and that would be, the best thing that you could do to support the podcast. I'm out here working every week, putting 110% into all this stuff. I'm on the front lines, which is, we got to call it as it is. The COVID shit is getting wild, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep bringing in guests. I've been thinking about this pretty heavily. I try to do everything I can to mitigate what is happening in the world. I wear a mask, I use hand sanitizer and shit like that. But, you read about what's in the news and the numbers keep growing. So you might be getting some more research episodes, but that's neither here nor there. We're on this week. Let's stay here with this week. But first thing is first, I'd like you to, just recognize that, it's nog season. It's nog season. From November to December is nog season. Eggnog is a novelty item that comes around during the winter, and it is, it's a gift from God, frankly. And Turner's Premium Tea, the creators of Turner's Premium Tea, Turner Dairy Farms, they have a fine pint of eggnog. And I have to say that myself because I grab one as soon as they come out, I have to get one. And then, then I probably wait until Christmas to have the rest of it. But as soon as it's on the shelf, I grab a Turner's eggnog. Well, they do have a limited edition new flavor. Obviously they do them limited edition flavored milks. They have the birthday cake, chocolate banana. They got all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, this time is a little bit different. They have a red velvet eggnog. I don't know if I've ever seen a flavored eggnog from other places, but they told me, hey, we're about to have this red velvet eggnog. It's crazy. And I was like, geez, red velvet. I don't know. I'm not usually a guy that usually picks red velvet as a flavor, but you already know I'm going to be trying it. It's nog season. You got to. It's the season. 'Tis the season. But shout out to Turner's for keeping the lights on. Couple other things I wanted to talk about. I saw the first snow flurry of the year yesterday. It made me happy. Some people don't like snow. I like snow. I'm sorry about it. Deal with it. But the reason that we are all here this week, we have a great episode of the podcast. I sit down with Jess Kulo, who is Hungry Girl Big City, and she is a foodie, a food blogger, an influencer, a content creator, a social media strategist. Almost slipped up on that word there, but we're just going to pretend it didn't happen. But she is... she wears a million hats. I follow her on Instagram. You could follow her at Hungry GRL Big City, Hungry Girl Big City without the I. But she has an awesome Instagram, always posting fire food, great photos of everything, and she has she knows where all the good stuff is. I always see good stuff on her Instagram, no matter where it is. Dianoia's, some of the ridiculous amount of great restaurants we have in Pittsburgh. That's her job. She's going around finding all the good stuff and telling us about it. And what else would you want than someone who is, giving you advice for good food. But Jess was super cool. I've been following her for a while and seeing what she's been doing. And I just think that, just like podcasts, there's a million of them out there. We live in a world of saturation. And, there's a million food bloggers and there's a million people doing everything that you're interested in, right? But you got to find the right person that's doing it that stands out from other people. And I think Jess does that very well. I really like how she writes about whatever she's writing about. she stuck out to me, and I wanted to get her in and talk to her about, kind of how she got to where she is today. She runs a successful business, and I told her in the beginning, I was like, it's a dream job. Like you're walking around eating food, and you get to, write to people about how you feel about it. Like, how fun is that? And I wanted to just know like what her journey was, like kind of how she got into, wanting to think about food on a different level rather than just like, all of us are going out to eat, I guess maybe not now, but all of us are eating food, and like, food is it's such like a powerful thing in life. And I think a lot of us just like kind of take it for granted. We just go out to eat, and it's just like such like a, desensitized thing. Like but food is like, people eat around the dinner table, and it's like a powerful thing in life. And I think that kind of is a lost thing. But when people think about food on a different level and write about it and, kind of talk about it in a different way rather than just like stopping and, satisfying a hunger, I think it's interesting. And we talk about, everything from, how she kind of got into doing that, how she started her own company, and kind of how she navigated to where she is today. And it's a great episode, and I'm pumped for everyone to hear it. So without further ado, episode 142 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Jess Kulo of Hungry Girl Big City.
Telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast. Will you pull that mic in towards you?
Totally. Is that good?
Yeah. So it's just like, I don't know, it's like an ice cream cone. It's like, you don't have to have like your mouth super close to it, but
Perfect.
like the more it is, the better it sounds. But
Cool.
So I was trying to think of how I came across like your page and what you do. And I don't really remember it. I think it just had to be from like, I don't know, scrolling through Instagram. That's kind of like where I get all the people that I try to like curate on here.
Right.
But like I have no idea really anything about you. I know that you're, what would you call yourself?
That's such a good question. I feel like everyone in my life describes me so differently. And every time they like explain to me how they describe me, they're like, is that okay that I say this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, honestly, I do so much that it's okay.
Yeah. So like, are you like, I from my point of view, I would say you're a food blogger, creative, I don't know, like influencer. I hate the word influencer.
I know, it's so tough. Usually, like the short answer is I do social media management and marketing.
Yeah. With
a side of being like an influencer.
Yeah.
But I guess if you were to break it down, I technically run my own. I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
Some people describe me as a model, which I definitely wouldn't agree with. I have a lot of friends that are photographers because I'm a creative.
Yeah.
So I feel like it just kind of depends on who I'm talking to.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
That's definitely fair because you do seem to wear many hats. But I like have been following your page for a while, and I've been like seeing like all the different things you do. You have like the collaborations with like Millie's. You're doing like these sponsored ads, and like you're pretty like well versed with all this stuff all over the city. I guess, I mean, you have to be with your job.
Yeah, I try to be.
Yeah.
Totally.
And you're not from here originally?
No, I'm from New Jersey.
And like, could I ask how old you are?
Oh, totally. I'm 25.
Okay, so how do you even come to Pittsburgh? Where does this even start?
For sure. So I came to Pittsburgh. I went to University of Pittsburgh. So I came here in 2013.
Yeah.
Lived in Oakland, did all the Pitt things, never really left Oakland, which is wild.
Yeah.
Except to go to Southside to go to, Carson City and stuff.
For sure.
And then I graduated in 2017. I was a communications and a nonfiction writing major.
Nonfiction writing.
I really wanted to be a journalist, which I still do a lot of writing now, but like New York Times, Cosmo magazine, that sort of stuff was like my goal.
That's what you wanted to do. What did you want to write about?
Everything.
Yeah.
I kind of, when I came to Pitt, I was undecided and I joined a club that was like an online publication. So I kind of just wrote about everything. Everything from like the top 10 Twitters you should follow.
Yeah.
To like ice cream flavors ranked. Kind
Yeah.
of just like all over the place, pop culture-y, kind of like, the articles that like BuzzFeed's really famous for.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just got into the place. I wrote for the Pitt News. And then food kind of became like the epitome of everything that I did.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like no matter who you are, what you do, where you're from, food is like the root of everything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like so much time is shared over that. So much bread is broken, and people build relationships over it. And I think it's super interesting what you do because it's like, it's kind of like from an outsider's point of view, it's like a dream job. You're just going around and eating all this delicious stuff, and giving your input about it, and people are listening to it. And I mean, it's wild. I mean, I'm on a very, very small scale of that, like with what I talk about on here. I get people that hit me up and they'll be like, oh, we went to this place because you were talking it up, like Streets on Carson. I get people hit me up all the time about that, and they're
Yeah,
like,
I
oh, we
love
just
that
went there
place.
and it's great. And it's cool that people like your opinions about things.
It's really wild.
It is. It's wild anytime anyone kind of like takes your advice about things. But okay, so before we get too deep into this, I do an opening segment with everyone. It's called What's in the Cup.
What's in the cup?
So what is in both of your cups?
Yes. So first we have a water, Essentia, specifically Essentia, I guess some
dropped
people
it.
would say. Ah, okay. I was wondering.
Yeah, I dropped
That's
it.
totally okay.
As soon as I got home, I dropped it, and I thought I broke the bottle, but
Hey, it's okay.
But we're still good there.
At least it's durable. Yeah, I'm really big on staying hydrated.
Yeah,
I drink a lot of water, like triple digits
that's good.
every day.
Yeah, you're supposed to.
Yes, but I start every day with coffee. So my other cup is this super cool coffee that you brought from West Virginia, you said?
Yeah, it's from Davis, West Virginia, at a place called Tip Top Coffee. And I don't know, my brother and my sister-in-law, they go down there and hike all the time. And me and my wife just went down and we took groceries down and rented a space,
Oh,
or
that's so
rented
nice.
like a cabin down there just to like try to get away, but still try to, kind of be away from people.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But that place is, I don't know, we were kind of like blown away by it because, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of picky with coffee. Like I kind of got real into it. And some coffees I'm just not into, but they were like super like, I don't know, very boutique-y feely. Like it was a cool place. Like their build out was really cool. They had great baked goods, and I thought that those cans were awesome. Like I saw them in there.
These are cool.
They had like a whole can of IPAs with like all the weird labels, and then I saw all those, and then I thought that those were, like they're made like coffee IPAs that they made, but it was that one's vanilla latte. We had a pumpkin spice latte. There was cold brew, and they were all
wow.
just so good. But yeah. So I mean, before you get into like becoming a journalist and everything, it's like, what did you grow up wanting to do?
So that's a great question because what I grew up wanting to do has nothing to do with
Usually
what
it's
I
like
do
that.
now. Yeah. I went through phases. I went to fashion camp. I really wanted to become a fashion designer.
What is fashion camp?
So that consisted of a week long of like creating mood boards, kind of how, fashion designers do before fashion week and things of that nature, like before the next season type thing.
Yeah.
So I made my own mood board. And they kind of taught you how to like literally make your own clothes.
Oh, wow.
So since where I'm from, New Jersey is so up north, I'm super close to New York City. So like I grew up going there.
Yeah.
So we literally, I think it was like 10 of us and then like 3 instructors. Someone like did it out of their house. A family friend of mine did it. So she told me about it and I was like, I have to do it.
Yeah.
And they took us to Mood, which is where they would go on Project Runway.
Oh, wow.
With all the fabrics. If you've ever watched that show, they pull the rolls out.
Yeah.
And we were able to pick our own fabrics, and then I made my own skirt. And then at the end
wow.
of the week, you presented to a team of people kind of in different fashion realms. So there was I remember there was someone in the accessories department at Macy's and things like that.
How old were you when you did this?
I definitely had to be like 12 or 13.
Oh, that's cool though.
Yeah.
But young, like you had an idea
like
whenever
12,
you were
13,
young.
14. I feel like that part of life is like a blur.
I know, it all runs together.
But like around that time for sure.
Now, you being like into like fashion and stuff like that, like how did that come into play? Like what was like, your initiation into like being conscious of what you wear?
I'm trying to think. Well, I used to sneak my mom's Us Weekly magazines when I
okay.
was probably like 8.
Yeah.
And they always had this section where it was like who wore it better. Or like
I
honestly,
remember those.
Or the mean section that definitely probably shouldn't or doesn't exist now, where like they'd have the commentators comment on like the worst looks.
Oh yeah.
And I just remember being, wow, I never want to be on this list.
I remember that now that you say it. Like
Yeah.
my mom used to always have
I feel like it definitely wouldn't fly now. I don't
Oh,
even. I
no.
haven't picked up an Us Weekly, I think, since I was 10. so-
everything nowadays would be like, it's like the whole level of things is so changed. Like if you remember, that's a perfect example, like who wore it better and like what were they thinking sections.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, you can't say anything really anymore.
Exactly.
It was ruthless back in the day. I just started watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay, I've heard good things, but I've never watched.
Well, it's like the beginning of it is like, it could never be on TV now. It's like, it could never, ever be on TV now. But that's usually how it is with a lot of things. It's like,
Totally.
times change. But so, if you're into like fashion and things like that, it's like going through school. I always like bring it up to everyone basically because I feel like high school was such like a unique part in people's lives because, we're just like these lost sheep and all these people shepherd us into like, you got to go to college and get a real job and be secure and do all this. So it's like
100%.
whenever you're going into high school, it's like, what's your idea of like what you want to be? Did you still want to be, in fashion or would you more be to journalism?
Right. So probably by the time I was going into high school, I went to an all-girls private high school.
Oh, wow.
Which is ironic because then I wore like a uniform.
Yeah.
Which I think kind of in the way, like fashion is still kind of, I think weirdly enough, subtly a part of Hungry Girl.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say I'm more of like a lifestyle brand, which I do appreciate.
Yeah,
Which kind of allows me to have like a cool collaborations that are more like lifestyle versus just food.
Yeah.
But I would say probably like closer to high school. I went through a phase where I wanted to be a crime scene investigator. I loved watching CSI Miami.
I knew it. CSI. That got every young kid. You're like, God, that's so
I had like
cool.
the kit for Christmas one year, like and
yeah.
everything with like the fake hair and like the microscope and stuff.
I love that. And I think that was I've been thinking about this a lot because like I'll ask people about the podcast that they love and it's either people love like comedy podcasts, self-help podcasts, or murder porn podcasts. Mm-hmm. And it's like so many people love watching this like, serial, American murder or whatever on there. And you're just like, God, it's so weird that we like all that like weird demented stuff. But
Right.
CSI, they're showing like, a knife goes into your body. And it's like you see all these like weird detail models.
Exactly. But it's also interesting because in high school, I actually started interning at an advertising agency in New York.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's when I was like 16.
And
So I went into like college having somewhat of an advertising background and kind of being like, oh, this is cool. I think I want to kind of go into advertising. And it definitely was along the lines of like traditional advertising.
yeah, that's interesting for sure because it's like that's like a part of the business that I've always been like interested in, but I never had like any like real, work in. It's just all stuff that, you kind of pick up along the way.
Yeah.
I'm curious though. So you said you went to an all girls high school.
I did.
What what is that experience like? Because, like I can't even imagine what that would be.
I'm sure.
It's like, obviously, yeah, I'm a
Yeah,
guy.
people kind of freak out.
Well,
like
it's-
my freshman year, RA pulled me aside once, and she was like, "Are you okay? Like you have class with you have class with like other people and things like that." And I was like, "Yes, I'm fine. Like I didn't grow up and
yeah.
just talking to people I went to school with."
Yeah, I mean, like whenever you're like, do you feel that was like beneficial that like going into high school with like just like all girls?
I think in a way.
Yeah. I'm sure it
I'm
has its pros and cons.
Definitely. So I was in public school all the way up until high school.
Yeah.
And the middle school I was in, it was like the middle school was 7th and 8th, and then the high school would be like the same people.
Yeah.
And it was like a regional high school, so it was 4 towns coming together.
Oh wow.
So that was like In middle school, I went to school with like almost like probably 300 people.
Yeah.
And that was it was like a lot. So I think kind of I knew a lot of my friends were kind of shifting.
Yeah.
And I didn't love the people in my grade.
Yeah.
And I went from like a class of like 300 probably to like 64.
Wow.
Just females, you know, which is also something that's interesting to say now because I feel like, you know, gender is so fluid. But yeah, I went to school with 64 like females, and
That's the total of the whole school is 60?
just my grade.
Oh, okay.
And we definitely had like one of the smaller grades, and it was like uniforms.
What do you like? What's your thoughts about like the whole uniform things? Because I can't remember what I watched. It might have been like
Gossip Girl.
Was it Gossip Girl? It might have been.
They all wore the uniforms with like the, you know, the pearls, and they would add like the designer scarves and things like that. Like the least realistic.
Now, I remember Gossip Girl, but I remember hearing like the point of view of like having everyone wear uniforms was like beneficial in the way that like, you know, people didn't have to like kind of compete.
That's
you know,
true.
Like it was all just like, you know, kind of like leveled the playing field, and it kind of like kept, you know, I thought that I don't know why that's always stuck with me, and I always thought that was super interesting. But was it kind of like Gossip Girl where you could do whatever, like wear
Definitely
little?
not.
No,
especially
strict.
because it was a Catholic school.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had, you know, the teachers that were like I'm gonna measure. Literally, we're like, I will take a ruler out and measure your skirt.
Oh wow.
And it's like none of our skirts were like literally past our knees.
Yeah.
You know, because it was all girls.
Yeah.
You know, we'd show up and like compare buns or like how long we didn't shave for, like
Yeah.
our legs and things like that.
Yeah, like,
and like the
that's
shoes were
crazy.
so ugly. Yeah. But I mean, it's funny because a lot of us like took the skirts at least and like used them for Halloween costumes through college. So that was
bet.
always funny.
That's it's an interesting Gossip Girl. You bring it up. That was like one of my favorites. Like I don't know why I got real into it one time. Like probably like 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and I got so into it that I like called off work at one point to like just binge watch all these shows. I don't know. Supposedly they're gonna bring it back. It's probably gonna be terrible.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like if something's good the first time, why change it?
Well, I mean, you have Chuck Bass. He got canceled. You know, and like, you know, I feel like that he was like a main part of the show.
100%.
You know, and it's weird that he gets canceled now because that's one of his main, you know, attributes in the show is being kind of like a scumbag.
Right.
But regardless about Gossip Girl, but it's like, so in high school, what you said you went for like the advertising. It's like, how do you even go to do that?
Totally. I ended up knowing someone. It was a family friend.
Okay, that's cool.
Kind of said the company that he worked at, it's called BBDO. It's a pretty big one. They have like offices around the world. They had an internship program, and I like sent a resume. I didn't really have work other than a few writing samples from high school. And so my first summer, I was an account management intern on the Starbucks team, which was cool. You know, I was like 16 going on 17. I think I was 17 when I was interning, because I was taking the bus into the city, like commuting.
Yeah, wow.
You know, the office was right near Radio City.
How long did it take you to get to the city from your house?
It depended on the day, and like I commuted so we'll probably get there, but post college, I worked in New York for a year and a half.
Okay.
So like even I like had been taking the bus when I was like 16 until I was like I was 23 when I moved here.
So whenever you were growing up, you lived close enough to like just go to New York.
Totally.
Oh,
like we
okay.
usually my family, we would usually just drive.
Oh wow, that's like a crazy, because it's obviously here. It's like a big trip you have to make to go up there.
I mean, so many people, like my friends from here, are like, I've never been to New York, and to me, it's like I've been going there since before I could talk.
Yeah, so it's like you're probably a little bit desensitized to it.
A little bit.
It's like it's such an overwhelming experience
energy's
to
crazy.
go there. It is.
Have
It's
you
like,
been?
I've been to New York a couple times. I've been there. We went in like 6th or 7th grade. Whenever it was like our class trip, we went to go. I think we went there to go see the 9/11 memorial.
Oh wow.
And like we went to go see Phantom of the Opera. But other than that, I mean, like you don't really get to have an experience of it whenever you go there with high school.
Oh yeah, no.
Or middle school, actually.
Because it's so controlled.
Yeah, it's so controlled. Like you weren't even allowed to like the most freedom that we had was we got to go shop with all the bootleg stuff whenever
On like Canal Street.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I was bartering with people, and these
Yeah.
girls were giving me money to barter for Dooney and Burke purses.
Oh my gosh.
So like that kind of dates it from back how long it was. Like the white purse with the colored letters.
Yep.
Like,
I had a black one of those.
it's ridiculous, but I went there and I remember buying like a Rolex, and I was buying all these girls these purses, and they would let me keep the rest of the money that I like was able to get off of the money.
Oh,
But I
wow.
loved bartering, and like New York was
What a
cool.
side hustle.
I know, side hustle.
A
for
little
that, right?
illegal, but that's okay.
I know, it's ridiculous, but like it was super cool then. But then I went there for my like spring break freshman year of college.
Oh, cool. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Slippery Rock for a year. I didn't finish that, but like that spring break, everyone was. It might have actually been winter break because it was freezing in New York. But it was just me and my buddy. We both never been there, and we kind of just were like, let's try to like schedule anything. Like I'm not really like a beach guy, and I guess he is not either. But we went up there and we stayed for like 5 days. We were broke. We stayed in some weird hotel that like Madonna stayed in at one time before she was famous. That was like their claim to fame.
Oh, wow.
And it had like a shared bathroom. It was such like a weird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was almost like a Hey Arnold or something. But we got to go there, and that was like a little bit more of a experience of it. And then I went another time to go see a concert. So I can't say
I
that I've
miss
had
concerts.
me and my wife were just talking about it. It's crazy, and
Yeah.
now it seems like they're not gonna come back for a while.
I know.
It's a shame.
It is.
But so if you're doing advertising and you're kind of getting that like bug in you, it's like, have you always been into writing?
No.
No.
I literally in high school, I would write a paper, just turn it in, and then there'd be red all over it.
Yeah.
And it kind of was like, okay, like it never was like to me, oh, this is something I'm good at.
Yeah.
But then I think kind of going to school, and I had this mindset, oh, I think by the time I was going into my freshman year at Pitt, I had two summers of interning under my belt in New
Yeah.
York at the advertising agency. So I was like, yeah, like I'll dual major in business and communication. So I was kind of taking communication classes and some business classes, but undecided.
Yeah.
And then when I found out I would have to take biz calc to be in the business school, I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
And that kind of was around the time that I found the club that I was writing for. It's called Her Campus. It's like they have it across the country. It's like a national thing in that sense, but they have like chapters of it at schools. And it's kind of just like a club. You have like it was Her Campus Pitt on the national website, and it kind of was like everything that everyone wrote in the group would be on that page. So by the time I went home for Thanksgiving, because I didn't go home for breaks, because it was a far drive.
Yeah.
I remember going home and seeing like, friends from high school, and it's like, that first time that you're like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
what's changed? Like who's gotten into what?
Absolutely.
Like, all that. And so many, like more than one person came up to me and they were like, I read your article that you shared on Facebook, when Facebook was like kind of popping. I feel like now it's not.
Yeah. Back whenever it was just kids. kinda.
Right, exactly. And that's where I would share all of my articles. I really wasn't like pushing them out through Instagram, and Hungry Girl wasn't even a thing yet then. Like I didn't have the Instagram yet. And people would kind of be like, you're so, like, I love, your voice. I love what you write. Also these people that like I was friendly with but weren't my friends.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wonder if like I'm onto something. And then I just tried to do more and more outside of the classroom. I had like a few, I started writing for the Pitt News.
What even brought you to Pitt?
A friend of the family, I wanted a city school.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to be at a school unless there was like a city feel to it.
Yeah.
So like even St. Joe's in Philadelphia, I literally remember going to visit with a friend and driving towards the city, and then to get to the school, like you made a right and the city like would get farther and farther away.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I really liked not Georgetown, GW.
Yeah.
Because it was so like in the city, the buildings were on the streets and stuff like that. And I mean, I had never heard of Pittsburgh being from North Jersey.
Yeah, I mean,
if
like,
I'm being honest.
If you're up there, that's
Yeah.
that's why I asked that, is because like if you're up there and you're so close to New York, it's such like a diverse area.
Oh yeah.
So like you could hear from, I'm sure that you had just as much knowledge of like someplace in Oregon or someplace in California rather than Pittsburgh. But
Right. And I remember looking at Pace, which is like kind of in the financial district of New York. And I love my mom, but I remember her and I went to visit, and afterwards she was like, "You'll just be a train right away. Like, you could come home or I can go and visit whenever like we want." And I was like, okay, so I need a school that's like kind of on the East Coast somewhat, but
just far enough away.
Far enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, a family friend mentioned Pitt and that they had a good communication program.
Okay.
You know, Pitt's obviously known for so much more.
Yeah.
But I ended up applying just to be like, okay, at least I could add another safety. And it was the last school I applied to and the first one I heard from.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I came to visit in February for Accepted Students Weekend under the premise that my dad was like, we could go to a Penguins game because we're big Devils fans, hockey.
Yeah.
And he was like, my friend that's from Pittsburgh, recommended a really cool restaurant because I get like my love of food from my family. So I remember coming and I was like, okay, at least it'll be like fun.
Yeah.
I don't have to focus on the school stuff. And Meat and Potatoes was the first restaurant I ever ate at here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right before the Penguins game. And then the next day we toured the school, and that night I was like, this is it.
You liked it?
Oh, I loved it. I love the cathedral. I love that, like, the way Pitt's campus is set up. Like, yes, there's upper campus, but like Fifth and Forbes are really like the most happening, streets in the area.
Yes.
And I kind of just like really loved that, the school was such a part of like the city in that sense.
Yeah, it's such a weird vibe in Oakland. It's like,
But I love it.
There's nothing that's like it. I mean, if you
No.
go to like South Side,
That's why I never left it.
yeah, I mean, like South Side, Lawrenceville, like they all have like, I don't know if it's probably a negative sound, but like almost like a fabricated feeling of like, like what's the word? Like novelty. Like there's a bunch of novelty shops and like strange things in Lawrenceville. It's great. Like there's a lot of great things to eat and everything, but like Oakland is just like so diverse. It's just like a melting pot of everything, and it's such like an I don't spend that much time over there. I never really did, but anytime I did go over there, it was always very interesting.
Oh yeah, and it's so crazy because I have like a few clients that are in Oakland, and every time I'm there, I'm like, wow, it's so different from when I graduated 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
I bet. Now, for you to like decide to come to Pitt, it's obviously like, did you grow up in like a bigger area? Like where you lived in Jersey, was it like, did you live in like the city? Did you live in like a neighborhood?
A small town.
Yeah.
Like the suburbs.
Oh, okay. So I mean, like Pittsburgh, from your, you obviously have the experience of New York, but like Pittsburgh is, it's a small city compared to New York, but like it's still big enough to feel, like a big city. Like it's big enough to be able to like have that like to scratch that itch, but it's also small enough to be able to like, bike across the entire city in 15 minutes if you want to. It's an interesting area.
Totally. And though, just kind of the way that I relate to it is that where I grew up in New Jersey, kind of around it, there are like towns that I'll compare areas of Pittsburgh to. So like Lawrenceville reminds me of an area called Montclair, kind of around where I grew up, because there was like one main street. It kind of was like the hipster boutique-y stores, where everyone goes to eat brunch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for me, kind of when I got to the point of being here as an adult and, leaving Oakland, it was really awesome to like explore, all these areas that I had been to once or twice. But it kind of also was just like, wow, Pittsburgh is so much more than just downtown, because I think having New York City being my first ever like city experience, it kind of sets you up to be like, New York is massive. And, any other city, it's like, oh, this is it.
Yeah, it might be like underwhelming almost.
Right. Like I went to Cleveland for the first time probably a month ago, and I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
But also, it was really cool because I asked my followers, obviously we're so close to Ohio. I had never been to Ohio, so I was like, let's kind of cross this off. Kind of like how you and your wife went to West Virginia safely just to get away.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to be able to explore, their little Italy. And I stayed in an area called Tremont.
Tremont, yeah.
Yeah. And there was a place that Guy Fieri had just gone to, a really cute breakfast spot. My Airbnb was super close. I'm really into records. I have a record player. So the record scene in Cleveland is awesome. I spent probably way too much money on records and vintage things. I love thrift shopping, vintage shopping.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
Totally. So I think if anything, my perception of a city has really changed since being here.
Yeah.
I live in the South Side, and like even being over there, it really doesn't feel like I'm in the city, even though being in the South Side is like considered in the city.
Yeah, everyone considers it the city, but it's its own like
so
corner
interesting.
of everything.
Which in a way, I think the South Side is probably a little bit more happening than
The actual
downtown
city.
sometimes, right? I used to live in Lawrenceville, and even being over there, I think it's all about just energies too.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The energy behind things, and Lawrenceville has like a very weekendy energy.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I mean? It's like you go over there, and like if you go over there during the week, like if I ride my bike past there during the week, like there's still people going in and out of places. The coffee shops still have people in there, but like on the weekend, it's like it's almost comparable just to the part of the strip by like Penn Mac. It's like during the week there's people, but it's nothing anywhere near what the weekend is.
Right.
But it's so interesting like how the energies change with the days of the week. But yeah, that's super interesting. Now, for you to come over here and like go to Pitt, obviously, you graduated from there and did well. It's like, when does Hungry Girl come into play, and like how did it come into play? Because it's like I don't know, for me, I don't know about you, but like whenever I started this, like I was like, no one's gonna want to listen to me talk about things. No one wants to hear what I have to say. Like, who am I? Now, did you ever have that sort of feeling? Because you have a huge following now, and it got to be kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So the story of Hungry Girl is Hungry Girl turned 5 years old this spring. So a lot happened
Congrats.
in 5 years. Thank you. Yeah, it's super crazy. It's definitely evolved into something that I could not have predicted. Like, I never thought I was ever going to be doing Hungry Girl Big City full time.
Yeah.
Ever. So I started Hungry Girl just as an Instagram page my sophomore year at Pitt. So that was March of 2015. I was set to intern at Food Network magazine that summer, and I wanted to bring something with me to kind of impress them.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, wow, if I could do like the Instagram for, Food Network one day, that would be like a dream job type thing.
Were you pretty like savvy with social media beforehand?
It's so funny because if you ask like anyone I went to high school with, like I was using like those awful Instagram filters of like my like hand painted nails, like when Instagram first, like the first ever Instagram, and like my friends joke that they're like, who would have thought that Jess would make a career out of Instagram?
Yeah.
But I think, also I did a lot outside of the classroom besides writing that like social media played really big into it. I did a lot of brand ambassador stuff.
Now, what is that?
So for me, my biggest one was there's a UK-based brand. They're pretty big. It's called Boohoo.
Yeah.
They're like a fashion clothing company based in the UK.
Yeah.
But they wanted like a bigger US reach. So I applied to be like a brand ambassador. And I would get like a credit every month to shop with, and then I would manage. It was like the Instagram handle was like UPitt Boohoo, and then there was a Facebook page, and then I would have to like track the analytics of posts, promote like codes, and like plan content like based on like what was happening during that month or holidays and things like that. So literally, I was running a brand under a brand, and developing a brand voice.
Yeah.
So I was in a sorority, so everyone loved that I always had 20% off like going out clothes and like dresses for formals and things like that. To the point, oh yeah, like even my senior year, people would be like, "Do you still have Boohoo codes?" Like seriously, and I was like, no, I stopped doing that in like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But that kind of was like my first jump into like a semi-professional social media setting.
Now, before you even did this, it's like, did you have like a social media following?
So I had a personal Instagram that I made that in high school. I still have it. I treat that very differently than my Hungry Girl brand. Sometimes the two overlap. It's kind of developed into like a more, because I am, a creative and a freelancer. So it's nice to have two outlets to showcase my work.
Absolutely.
But But I had probably had like a little over 1,000 followers on that then, you know,
Okay.
kind of like standard for,
Yeah.
you know, like just a regular Instagram.
I think it's so interesting, like the whole idea of like brand ambassadors, just because like, you know, it's like, I don't know, Instagram now is just basically like, I don't know, I've been having conflicted feelings with it before, or as of lately, because like, you know, I would get on, as we talked about, Facebook used to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can't even, if I didn't have a podcast, I would delete Facebook in a
yeah.
second. Twitter, I'm not that attached to it to be able to look at it all the time. And
Right.
Instagram, like I love it. I love photos. Like I've always loved the idea of taking photos and the aspects of that. But it's like, I just feel like every single thing that I see now is like an algorithm to just buy shit.
Totally.
And it's like, I just got this update that where the notifications was, you hit it now and it's like a shopping page. And
It's so
like,
funny because my Hungry Girl Instagram, like it switched to that. And then today
The
it just
person-
switched back.
oh, did it?
It did. And like because the search button, like the reels took over the search and then the search went on the homepage.
Yeah, it's weird.
But mine switched back today. So I don't know if they got like enough backlash for them to kind of be
I
like,
hope so.
oh, this isn't worth it.
Yeah, I hope so, because
Yeah.
I hate it. It's just like, you know,
It's not what Instagram was designed for.
well, it's that. It's like, I get that people are like making money, people have a job and everything like that, but it's like, don't shove it down my throat.
Exactly. And I think like what has been so successful for, you know, bloggers and influencers to be
Yeah.
able to make money through Instagram is that, you know, the challenge is to sell something without selling it.
Yeah, be
you know,
authentic.
I'm sure you can relate, like, you know, like to sell your
100%.
podcast for people to listen. It's
100%.
like, you know, you're not like hashtag sponsored, like this is an ad type thing. You know, it's just like you're creating content for the brand to get people engaged.
Yeah, and it's just like I'm almost too stubborn to ever, you know, fall into any sort of like, you know, normalcy with it. It's just like I just feel like that whatever looks terrible to me, I can never do.
Right.
It's why, like, I don't know. It's just, it's interesting to see though, because it's like you do a good job at what you do, because like there's people that like, you know, make it very, very like, you know, fabricated, and it feels fake, and it feels like that,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that it's not like, it's not real. You know what I mean? And I see a dime a dozen of them nowadays, just like there's a dime a dozen of podcasts. And it's like, I try to navigate around those people and find the people that are doing it in a way that I like how they do it. It's like, I know that you have a job to do, and I know that you have to do your job a certain way, but I like the way that you do it. And that's why, like, I felt that it would be interesting to hear kind of like how you developed it.
Thank you.
But yeah, absolutely. And I think you do it well. So like the Hungry Girl came in 5 years ago, and before I cut you off, we were talking about that. It's very
it's so
tangential.
easy. That's so funny. Like it's so easy to like get off on tangents. It's like,
All
what
day.
were we even talking about?
That's why I do the long podcast, just because
Oh, yeah.
it's way easier for people to
Totally.
listen. But you started to develop like your own voice under that Boohoo, and then
Yes.
you stopped that, and then when did that come in? I think that's where we're picking up.
Yes. So I remember this. I have a really great memory, which is like a great and a bad thing.
That is good.
Yeah. I made the Hungry Girl Big City Instagram when I was sitting in the Starbucks on Atwood and Forbes
Oh wow.
in Oakland. That's where like I would work all the time. I hated going to the library because I needed, you know, noise, you know, to be able to write, just to, you know, keep the creativity stimulated, you know, just watching other people do things.
Yeah.
I was procrastinating studying or something, and I was like, I have all these food pictures. I have an internship lined up this summer. I should create a food Instagram. And it was kind of around the time, especially in the New York City area, where like food Instagrams were kind of becoming a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but literally there are so many food Instagrams out there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still shocked that I get followed by new food Instagrams, like to this day, because I'm like, how are all the names not already taken?
I know, it's crazy. It really is crazy. But if you think about it, there's a million podcasts. There's a million.
That's true.
Everything.
That's true.
We're in a time of saturation right now.
100%.
It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're an influencer, whether you have a clothing line. It's just there's a million of them.
Totally.
So it's like
what's important is like, you know, what sets you apart.
That's
you know?
exactly it. That like everyone could have a million of these things, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just what makes that person work harder. I feel like, the cream rises to the top. But if there's 1,000 people that are doing like mediocre things and a few people that are doing things that are a little bit above and beyond, they're going to stand out a little bit better.
Totally. And I think, even now people will message me and be like, I want as many followers as you have. Like, how did you get there? And I feel like the key to doing it, what I do well, is to kind of not care.
Yeah.
In a sense, kind of like how you were saying, like, everything as it is so saturated, but it's that much more obvious when you're clearly trying to sell something.
Yeah.
I have people that still follow me that have followed me when I was like 20.
Yeah.
Like when I first started.
Yeah.
Especially, it was really interesting. I started it in Pittsburgh, and then that summer I was in New York, and then I came back to Pittsburgh, and then I studied abroad in Italy, and then I was home in New York, New Jersey again for the summer. So my audience was just kind of all over the place. I had people that were also studying abroad in Italy while I was, or people coming to Pittsburgh, or people, at Pitt, or people in, New York, or like people in New Jersey. So, my audience was kind of in these three main areas. And then when I graduated Pitt in 2017, I did food video producing at ICYRB.
Oh,
so
wow.
those like crazy food videos that you would see on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
You're talking about like the video of like the aerial view of like or something like that,
I guess like my most noteworthy video is I did a video on a 10-pound giant Moscow mule.
Oh wow.
Those like quick 30-second
okay.
This is what it is, this is where you find it,
Yeah.
This is how it's made.
I get what you're saying.
Kind of like those videos where it's like, oh my god type thing.
Yeah, like Dianoias had one of like the pasta and the cheese wheel.
Yeah, like kind of like BuzzFeed really started it. But kind of like the art of those like clickbaity videos that get like millions of views on Facebook and Instagram.
Absolutely.
Like I literally became the giant Moscow Mule girl on top of Hungry Girl.
That's pretty interesting though.
It was very interesting. My first job out of college, I was the giant Moscow Mule girl.
So it's like if you're you say you have all these like food photos and everything, like were you conscious of like, I wanted to start taking pictures of food, and like you said before, you weren't always interested into food. Mm-hmm. But it's like when did that kind of like cross over?
Right. I just think I wasn't conscious of it.
Yeah.
I grew up Italian family. Sunday dinners were, the real deal. Phones put away, no distractions. Everyone sat at the table.
Yeah.
Stuffed shells, sausage, red sauce.
Do you cook yourself?
I do.
Yeah, that's good.
I do.
I didn't know whether you would be like, yep, I cook a lot and I'm all right at cooking, or I do not cook at all. Because it could have been either answer.
Totally. And I think kind of when I switched over to, having Hungry Girl and kind of being a little bit more conscious of, I love food, but what do I love about it? That kind of started for me.
That's a good way to think about it.
Because I
what
never
do you
studied
love about
it.
Yeah.
I never studied it. For me, it just, always brought the people in my life that, I cared about and loved together. Like as you said, like, literally breaking bread.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is why I feel like my job now is just that much more rewarding, because I get to do what I love and like meet new people and form these partnerships, with Millie's, my Pita My Shawarma partnership I've had for like a year or two now, just like relationships like that where it's like food from, no matter where it comes from has such an impact.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like, I feel like food kind of makes you forget about other things sometimes.
Every problem, that's what food is, what transcends the things that keep people apart. Like whether it's like, wars with different countries, but people still love each other's foods. And it's such like a powerful thing.
Totally. And I always like ate everything.
Yeah. That's one of my questions. So I don't really ever like prepare questions, but that's one thing I did want to ask was like, were you ever like picky?
So I was just talking about this recently. I always ate everything, but not everything was always so accessible to me.
Yeah.
Just more so in the sense, when I was like 10 or 12, getting Thai food takeout wasn't as big of a thing as it is now.
Yeah.
Especially where I live in the suburbs, it was like pizza, Italian, bagels, like American Chinese food type thing.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have ramen until I was 21 probably.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even, coming to school here, that definitely opened my, horizons and, kind of my view on food.
Probably because like, if you go to New York, it's so big that it's almost like...
Right.
it's almost overwhelming to try the different places. But
Right.
like in Pittsburgh, you have like a small scale version of all these things, so everything's more accessible.
And I never I never pictured, dining out and cooking and those sorts of things. Like I could really do anything I wanted.
Yeah.
Because like I can't drive when I'm 12 or things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. I didn't really have that mindset of like, what am I going to explore via my palate today type thing.
Absolutely. But were you never someone that like was like, oh, I don't like fish, or I don't like this?
I didn't eat fish until probably my late teens.
Okay.
My nickname growing up was meat and potatoes and ketchup queen.
Yeah, you liked all that.
Yeah.
I was a big ketchup person too.
Oh, I put ketchup on everything. I mean, I still do.
Yeah, I
but-
do too, and it's
and Heinz
terrible.
always.
My wife hates it. She eats ketchup very, very randomly on like, if she has like fresh cut French fries, that's the only time I see her eat that.
Oh, wow, yum.
Or but she will never put I put ketchup on eggs.
Oh my God, yeah.
And she refuses. She's like, God, you're just ruining it.
No.
But it's interesting to like that's like an interesting like point that you brought up. It's like New York, it definitely like would feel overwhelming because there's so many different things. It's probably like hard to find, it's like a needle in a haystack.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like Pittsburgh, there's not like a million different, shawarma places, like I've heard of Peter my Shawarma. I've heard of like, Salem's, you hear about the places that you need to hear about if you want them certain meals.
Totally.
But where was I going with it? Oh yeah. So it's like if you're growing up and like you're not too picky and everything, it's interesting to think about. It's like, yeah, I love food, but like, what do I love about it?
Right.
And that's I guess that's what you do on your page.
Right. And it's also kind of, definitely in the last few years, Anthony Bourdain is such a huge, role model for me.
Yeah. Everyone that has anything to do with cooking, R.I.P.
Right. And just even, coming from like a journalistic background, like just the way that he writes about other countries.
Yeah.
I have this beautiful book that a friend got me as a present. It's like this book of, someone, I think one of his chef friends collected all these sentiments from people around the world that just watched Anthony Bourdain, didn't even really know him. And it's just these quotes.
Really?
Yeah. Some people, like some that knew him, like,
Yeah.
he had that episode in Miami with Questlove and like,
Yeah.
he has a segment in there. So like, people kind of all over the spectrum.
That's so awesome.
But they all submitted these quotes just about how, even though they never traveled here, Anthony Bourdain, made them feel like they were there. Or, this person went through a really traumatic life experience and watching Anthony Bourdain inspired them to finally, make the trip to Japan or something like that. And just the way that Anthony Bourdain was able to meet people and like eat everything and, tell these stories in a way where...
And be present.
Yeah, like he literally was communicating everyone else's like stories, no matter how big or small, with everyone else.
Yeah, I love I came onto him like very late in life. Like I never watched Parts Unknown, barely ever. And then for about a month and a half I just binged it all. Mm-hmm. And it's such an interesting to like to think about that and to think about like the way he is like, he's present in every place he goes and like he kind of just like pours everything into it and sells it to his best ability, but he's not selling things. Mm-hmm. It's like, what we were talking about before. It's like you want to promote things and sell things, but you don't want to do it in a way that doesn't seem authentic.
Right.
And he just did everything and it just seems so like, true and so like, mm-hmm. I don't know. I dude was great for sure.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
my favorite book of his is A Cook's Tour or A Chef's Tour, one of those. And that kind of just is his own diaries of filming Parts Unknown.
Yeah.
And just like kind of what you don't see on TV.
Yeah.
So like having a camera crew in your hotel room when you're like, when you have food poisoning or like, when your
yeah.
body doesn't react to what you've eaten or like drinking so much vodka in Russia that like he's like falling through the snow like on camera to get back, just like those stories where it's like, yes, you have like what's in front of the camera and like camera perfect, but it's like he's still experiencing them as a human.
Absolutely. It's like we're only seeing it through like the third filter. Matthew McConaughey has a book that he just came out with and he was talking about how everything that he does for work is done is is pictured through 3 filters. He does it through, the acting, and then the writer takes it, and then the other filter is like the editing, and then there's the final product, which there's 3 filters of what he's doing. But it's like, with Anthony Bourdain, it's like he has to like live it, and then they're putting it on TV. So there's so much extra shit there. But it's so weird to think about it because like he was like, one of the grunts. It's like he was in the kitchens, and he was like working them long hours. And it's so cool to hear about like his experience there compared to like, listening to him talk about it on the show, because like he has a good way of like,
his voice is amazing.
And such a great way to explain it for someone who was like, knee deep in everything and like knows all the technical and everything like that. He did such a great way of explaining it to like the lay person.
Right.
You know what I mean? In a way that still made you feel like that, he wasn't like, judging you or anything like that. I don't know. It's interesting to think about that. Everyone always talks about Anthony Bourdain if they have anything to do with food, but he really was like the GOAT of it all.
Oh, right. And he's from New Jersey, so.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Close to your heart.
Exactly. Exactly.
So whenever you're, kind of developing this page and like you're starting to like, kind of focus it into like, kind of sharpen the sword of it all. It's like you start this page, you start doing posts. Like, what was the response in the beginning, like whenever you first started?
Right. So I started it in March or April 2015, and then I turned 20 that June.
Yeah.
So for me, I wanted 2,000 followers by 20, and I got it. And at first, I made everyone in my sorority follow it, like all my friends, my high school friends, my family. And then it got to the point where people were following me that I didn't, I didn't know.
Yeah.
It kind of caught on. And at first my page I had a lot of my own original photos.
Yeah.
But, I was a college student. I didn't have that many. So people started submitting photos. So probably like for most of my college experience, a lot of the photos were like a mix of mine, a mix of like photos other people submitted.
Yeah.
Reposts from other accounts was like the big thing. And people just like loved when I would like repost their photos. Like that was a big part, I think, of how my brand grew, but also because Hungry Girl Big City, I mean, I was 20, 21, like when I first started and kind of like built a following. When I came back from Italy, that was the second semester of my junior year. So when I came back, I turned 21. And at that point, I had 18,000 followers.
Oh, wow.
So Hungry Girl Big City was kind of this like female voice, fries before guys,
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And that was really crazy because coming back to Pitt for my senior year, I would be in the bathroom of Peter's Pub, which is no longer there. I don't know if you...
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
Where's that at?
It was where the now Mario's is in Oakland.
Mario's in Oakland. I don't know. I'm not a bar guy. I don't even know where that is.
If you know where like Fuel and Fuddle is or Stacked.
Yeah, I know where that is.
It's like... If you're going down Forbes and Stacked is here, it's like up this way.
Okay.
Where Jester's Court used to be.
Yeah.
That was Peter's. That was like the bar to go to.
Wow.
It's now a Mario's, which is so sad. But I remember like being in the bathroom there and girls, I don't know how it is for guys, but girls always like, drunkenly make friends in the bathroom. It's like, oh my God, I love your skirt. Like people would be like, are you Hungry Girl Big City? Like I follow your Instagram.
Where did the name come from?
So... my screen name when I was 10, do you know the monkey Paul Frank?
Oh, yeah.
Like the cartoon?
Yeah.
So I was obsessed with that. So my screen name was P Frank Girl, but no I in girl, 20.
Yeah.
So I live so close to New York that Hungry Girl Big City without the I in girl kind of just came to me.
Okay.
And it stuck. I had a friend that was a graphic designer, and she asked if she could make me a logo to add to her portfolio while she was applying for jobs. My logo has since changed, but it's kind of based off of my original logo, which is super cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, like the pink and black.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Sex and the City font almost.
Oh, yeah. I guess, the Sex and the City. Now that you say that, I kind of notice it.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Like, I graduated 2017. It like really wasn't until I was applying to jobs that I was like, I literally just built a brand.
Yeah.
And I think that was such a blessing in disguise. The fact that I built a brand. all on my own, developed a brand voice because I found even when I wasn't doing Hungry Girl Big City full time, because that didn't come until I moved back here in 2018.
Yeah.
Like my first job out of college was at ICYRB. They loved that I had built a brand myself, and that's really what we talked about.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my edit tests and everything that I like submitted, I knew how to do because I was doing Hungry Girl.
Yeah.
So like everything I learned was really outside of the classroom.
Yeah. So, I mean, like just hands on.
Totally.
And now, whenever you're like beginning this and like starting, so what you said you gained like 18,000 followers in the first like year of doing this. Mm-hmm. Now, like, what do you think that was attributed to?
I think just because it's kind of like if you met someone that's been like in a relationship for forever and you tell them about, like a dating app and they're like, I'm so glad I don't have to date now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so glad I started it then because I can't imagine if I was starting it now and building a following.
Oh, yeah, because it's so saturated now.
Exactly. Like when I started, everyone was kind of like, what's a food Instagram? And
Yeah.
I think because I had like, the edge of kind of knowing what was going on in New York, I was like, well, let me kind of start this because I feel like this is about to pick up.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it never was something that was ever like fully at the forefront until 2018.
It's that is an interesting point to think about. It's like because I was gonna ask you like how did you get through like the beginning of it? It's like the podcast. Whenever I did this in the beginning, I had 20 people listening to an episode, and 15 of them were my friends and my mom and my dad. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it was like whenever you're in the mud and you're trying to, build something from the ground up, it's like you have to get through those beginning stages of just bullshit that you're wading through. And, they're the people that, get through that and are persistent and, stick to it. It ends up working for them. But it's like, did you have that in the beginning where you where you're like, oh, they're suddenly like getting, so much feedback, 10 likes, like this is not doing anything. Do I want to keep doing this? Did you have that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it also was just kind of like, a lot of people that were kind of around me were like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
like my grandparents didn't get it. But, I think when it kind of really hit was when I studied abroad in Italy.
Yeah. How did that come into play?
So I like knew I wanted to study abroad. I'm Italian and I had never traveled outside of the country.
Yeah.
And just, being a communication and nonfiction writing major, it kind of really aligned with, my credits and classes and things like that.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to learn Italian. So I took a semester of Italian at Pitt before I went, which was super helpful. I studied abroad in Florence.
Oh, wow.
Which is a beautiful city.
How long were you there?
3.5 months.
Oh, wow.
So like end of that January to end of April.
And while you're there, you're also like you're doing the Hungry Girl Big City.
Mm-hmm. But like, the whole time during that time, like it just was something I did for fun.
Yeah.
Like it just was so nice to get a reaction out of it.
Yeah, and just like, post something and like you do it for the fun of it.
Right.
And
It kind of just became second nature. I did have those moments. I would honestly say probably more so like more into my professional career.
Yeah.
As far as like, is this resonating? That sort of stuff. But I really just did it for fun. My friends loved it.
Yeah.
They would send me pictures. We'd all take pictures, when we would go out to eat. And then I think when I was in Italy, that kind of hit the point of me being a face in my brand.
Yeah.
Because at first I wasn't sharing pictures of myself.
Yeah.
So I think that really changed the dynamic of my brand because, then people knew the person behind the account.
Yeah.
And it kind of really created, the sense of authority and like authenticity and, people, especially now, but like, when I first started posting pictures of myself, I think that was kind of like, I was like, is this weird?
Yeah. I mean, like
this isn't a bowl of pasta. Like it's me with a bowl of pasta, how's that going to be received? And, honestly, even to this day, pictures of me sometimes do better than pictures of just food.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. I mean, obviously, I'm very, very, very small scale of what you do, but it's like in the beginning, I wanted to kind of keep myself separate from everything because like I didn't want this to be about me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's hard to talk to someone for 2 hours and not have it, kind of be about you.
Right.
Obviously, over the years, I've been able to do this a little bit better, but it's like I didn't want to post pictures of me. I didn't want to like, you know, say my name and like, you know, kind of, excuse me, but like give other people like, you know, drown them with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But my wife was like, you know, you've been doing this. Like, why don't you like say your name in the beginning? Like you want people to like know who you are. It's like you're building, because like I started to see people with like my t-shirts on and Southside.
Oh,
and,
that's
like,
awesome.
It was the coolest feeling in the world. And like you see that and it's like, she was like, why don't you want to like build the brand so people like know who you are? She was like, because I'm someone where, you know, if I, you know, the reason that I started the podcast is if I like someone's product, like I want to know about the person behind the product, because
Totally.
like I want to know, like, you know, if they're a good person, if they're good people, like what are their values? Like not anything like super deep. Like, you know, who do you fucking political party support? Like, I don't want to get that deep. I just want to
Right.
know what type of person you are in life. And, I felt that like, you know, adding, like you were saying, adding yourself into it is beneficial, because it's like people want to know, you know, about you. People want to know who they're listening to and why they're listening to them.
Right. And I think also, you know, it kind of changes the brand or whatever you're working on,
Yeah.
because it's like, you know, you have this brand voice, and then it's like you post yourself, and then when people see your post, they picture you and
Yeah.
like you saying it.
Yeah.
Like getting into video right out of college was really great, because that allowed me to kind of, you know, add video and me in video to my page too.
Yeah.
And even just like, you know, talking into my Instagram stories, I used to be really big on that
Yeah.
for a period of time. And, you know, like that really resonates with people. And, you know, even now doing this full time, that has helped me so much, because also a big part of what I do is I manage other brands' social media.
Yeah.
Which isn't really the forefront of, you know, what I share, obviously.
Yeah.
So like the fact that like I've been able to build this brand that I'm so a part of type thing, you know, that is my resume. I can't remember the last time I sent someone like an actual resume. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is my Instagram.
Yeah. It's like, that is the resume enough. It's like, look what I could do.
Right. And I feel like, you know, when social media first started becoming a thing, it was like, be careful what you tweet and post on Instagram. But I feel like the sense of like professionalism, you know, at least in the creative field, you know, what I share, you know, what you share, like that's the, you know, the professional aspect in a way. You know, I think the sense of professional careers and like being creative, like the line between them is like so much more blurred than it used to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I think even you know, you had mentioned before, like, you know, having a career in something this creative, you know, that's not something that like, you know, my parents always like understood
100%.
or like saw. Like even when I said I wanted to be a writer, my mom was like, are you like, you know, like, are you sure? Like, you know, that'd be great for law school.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like but if you work like, and you know, like you build
How
something
old are
for
your
yourself.
parents?
They're in their 50s.
So it's like they're not like, they're not old, you
No.
know, but it's such like a foreign idea. It's such a terrestrial idea,
Right.
For like whenever I, you know, explain to my mom about this and everything, like, you know, I did a podcast like probably 6 years ago now, and it's like whenever I did it back then, people didn't listen to podcasts. Like no one knew what it was,
Right.
You know, it was just a couple people that were like super hip into like, you know, the early days of Joe Rogan, like kind of knew what a podcast was. And then the rest of the people that listened are the people that you shoved it down their throats. It's like, I'm doing this, check it out. But after that one dissolved, and like nowadays everyone listens to podcasts. So for me to explain to my mom, like, you know, I want to make t-shirts and I want to like, you know, talk to people and do this and do that. It's like, there was, you know, I love my parents. They're very supportive, and they did great in life, and they taught me how to live a secure life, but they were not open to the idea of like, you know, the arts. You know what I mean? Like if I wanted to, I told
Well, because that's exactly how it's viewed. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
the arts.
It's the arts. It's like you'll never make money doing that.
Right. Like that's the perception of it.
It's
But
been
as
the
if
perception.
like people aren't investing in the arts, you know, like as if that isn't such an intricate part of all of our lives.
But I
know?
try to think about that from like my mother's point of view, because like my mom came up, she was corporate life her entire life and worked her way real high up into PNC. So like she climbed that ladder. She saw what it was like to like get in on the ground level and like work your way up the corporate ladder. My dad had his own company and like built houses. So like I had kind of like both experiences of like a corporate environment and like an entrepreneurial way. But both of them were like, you know, you got to get a secure job that you could work in an air conditioned office and get paid well.
Right.
And we don't want to have to worry about you. So it's like whenever I'm like, oh, I want to be a photographer, I want to be a special effects artist, they were like, nah. Luckily, my parents paid for school. They were super cool about that, but they were like, we're not paying for you to go be a photographer. You can do that on your own time.
Right.
But it's like, you know, nowadays they're starting to like see that the whole game has changed, because it's like people are making livings off of running social media pages. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I do. That's also why I wear so many hats.
yeah.
You know, is because I want to have my hands in as much as I possibly can.
So it's like you to explain this to your parents in the beginning, like they were obviously probably not as receptive to it.
Well, I think because for like the first part of it, Hungry Girl, like it was just my Instagram page.
Yeah.
And that kind of acted as like my resume. And then I worked at ICYRB.
Yeah.
And then from there I worked at Forbes.
Okay.
You know, and it's kind of just like my Instagram and my connections kind of got me to Forbes.
Yeah.
And I did social media producing as a freelancer. And I think like, you know, freelancing and like the gig economy is something that's also so new to, you know, our parents.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, that's something that's like so big and, you know, like this generation type thing, you know, project to project. You know, I was at ICYRB for 6 months. My contract at Forbes was 6 months. And I think having those experiences and being able to do them really well based on what I taught myself, I didn't take the jump to do Hungry like this full time until I moved back here October 2018.
Yeah.
And I was honestly really nervous to tell my parents that I wanted to do that. Because it kind of was like a spur of the moment type plan. Like I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to move back to Pittsburgh. Like I never thought I would move back to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Gets inside your soul.
Oh, yeah. I came back to visit and I literally just was like, there was just like something pulling me back.
Yeah.
Which I was not expecting. And I was looking up jobs and, you know, it kind of just aligned that I had a friend that was moving. She was going to rent her house in Lawrenceville furnished anyway, if I wanted to see it. And it was a beautiful house. That was where I first lived when I moved back here, was in Lawrenceville in like a row house. And I was nervous to tell my parents because I literally was telling them, hey, I'm going to go do my own thing, like not work for a company, not have, you know, health insurance through a company, not work a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Just go see how it goes in, you know, in the broader senses. But like I had a little bit more connection than
absolutely.
that. And I was like, what are my parents going to say?
Yeah.
And that's like, sad in a way that's a question that people so much ask me first. It's like, well, what do your parents think?
Well, that's why I ask it on here so much.
I'm like, my parents love it.
Any other person that I talk to that does like any sort of like, you know, like Cody Baker, for instance.
Yeah.
Like whenever I talk to him in the beginning, I'm like, dude, like what, like how do you explain what you do to your parents? Like, how do you explain that, like, Mom, just chill for a second. I got it. Everything's going to be fine. You know, just give me a minute to, you know, kind of, you know, believe in myself and do my own stuff. And let me show you what it is. It's like, it's weird now because like it's almost normal that, like you said, this is the generation where kids are, you know, there's so much more possibility and like, you know, people are playing video games and making millions of dollars and
or like getting famous on TikTok.
It's ridiculous. And like, and now it's so weird because like my mom has an Instagram. She's on there all the time commenting with emojis and shit. And it's like, I love it. Like, I love that she's like, you know, into it, but it's like, before I want to be like where were you at before? Like whenever, you know, I'm trying to explain to you that like, you know, this is a possibility. But I get their thought process behind it. Like if you got kids, you want them to be secure. You want them to have a safe life.
Or I think it's hard to think that someone can be successful doing something that they've never seen.
Never. Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, you know, we obviously have like, you know, a closer look on, you know, those that have been successful at it.
Absolutely.
And I think kind of like that slow build up for me, and also people being like, literally people would come up to my parents and be like, are you hungry? Like, isn't Hungry Girl your daughter?
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing. When I told them I wanted to move and do this full time, they were like, yeah. They were like, just make sure everything aligns, but like, go do it.
That's awesome.
And I literally just packed up my Jeep, moved here. It was October 5th, 2018. And I was like, I'll give myself a year.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. And then even being here, it's been 2 years now. I can't believe that this is, what I get to do every day. But it's also just like, Jess, you've put in the work to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you believe in yourself enough to be able to like do it.
Right.
In the beginning, did you have a little bit of imposter syndrome?
I did, but also at the beginning, I was cold emailing a lot. I was asking people for partnerships. I was pitching myself more, and not that I don't. I think it's super important to, not stop self-pitching yourself, especially
put yourself out there.
In lanes that you want to work in. But even for end of October, early November, every month I'll try to do like week check-ins twice a month and be like, these are the partnerships I'm working on. These are the dates for it. These are the logistics. This is what I have to create type thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, okay, so what else do I want to work on? Who else do I want to work with?
Yeah.
And I was doing my list for the beginning of November at the end of October. And I just was like, wow. I just was sitting with these like 10 to 12 partnerships that I was like in the talks of or had finalized or needed to take pictures of. And I was like, this time last year, like 2 years ago when I moved here, like this list didn't exist.
Yeah.
And I kind of going back to Pittsburgh, I am so honored that I get to do this here. I'm not from here, but Pittsburgh feels like home to me.
Yeah, it's cool to hear, I think it offers something different to have someone who isn't from here, kind of experience it, because like, especially if you're from like around New York where that's a regular place that you can go and experience those things. I think it's so interesting to hear like the input of people that are not from here, that are not originally from here, that like kind of fell in love with the city, and it's their accounts on why they fell in love with the city, why they love this place, why they love that place.
Right.
And I think that offers something a little bit more than just like, I grew up here, you know what I mean? And granted, I guess that's what I am, you know what I mean? But
I feel like most people I know grew up here.
Yeah, it's like, and
which I love, because it's like their families are still here.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's like people are biased about things. Like I'm biased. Like everyone knows that I'll tell.
Oh my god.
Everyone in the world that Turner's, Badamos, and Streets on Carson are on the Mount Rushmore next to Heinz.
Right.
But it's like, it's interesting. Like I said, it's just cool to hear, someone who, got bit by the Pittsburgh bug and like wanted to be here and do this.
Right.
So, for you to start this out as like a full-time thing, like you said, you did a lot of like cold emailing and things like that. It's like, what did you even like what was your goal? Like whenever you're first doing this, before you got your first, partnership or whatever, it's like, how do you even develop what you want to offer as a service? You know what I mean? Can you're just an email and say, hey, let me eat some of your food, take some pictures and post it on my Instagram.
Right. I think a lot of it also came from, I wear so many hats.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you need a new website? Do you need someone to run your social media? Do you need someone to develop your social media strategy? Do you need to know about hashtags?
Is that your approach? Was that your approach in the beginning?
Literally, I was like, this is my experience. This is what I've built. This is my following. Like, I can offer a lot.
Yeah.
But it's also, being in Pittsburgh, obviously there are a lot of presences here that revolve around food, but I think what's so great is that everyone does it in their own ways.
Yeah.
I'm like a huge fan of Hal's. I love what he does. Dan at PPG, I think his work is amazing, just how he can write about food.
Who is it?
Dan Giggs.
Dan Giggs.
He's a writer at PPG.
Yeah, I think someone's
He's an
told me about
amazing
him.
writer.
Yeah.
And I know you've had Hal on.
Yeah, it's an interesting way. Like you said, people do it differently.
Yeah, and I think just kind of because I had this brand, like when I moved back here, I was so nervous as to how people were going to react, but literally I wrote a blog post and I was like, hey, I'm back. And people were like, oh my God. Like I had people message me and they were like, I've been following you since like you went to Pitt and I went to Pitt, and like I'm so excited for you to be back type thing.
Now, did you have any negative?
As far as me coming back here, it wasn't necessarily negative. I don't think people realized that they were being negative.
Yeah.
Like I had a lot of people be like, so like, what do you do all day?
Yeah.
Which is so interesting to me. I remember I like went on a date and someone was like, so what do you, like, they were like, so what do you do all day? And I was like, oh my God, like, it's going to be so important for me to like, now it's going to affect my relationships now that I run, like, I mean, I run my own business.
Yeah.
Like, like I call myself a CEO.
Yeah.
Like when I speak at Pitt and Chatham and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, like I'll be introduced as a CEO.
Well, I mean, yeah, you have to wear it. You rep
Totally.
it.
And they're all like, you weren't in the business school, and just like, I spent a lot of time self-teaching myself things. And I think I got to a point where when I first moved here, kind of going back to the work, I was like, say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Like get your, stick your feet in, like say yes to everything. Like if it sucks, it sucks. And, I think coming into 2020, that kind of was like the turning point where I was working on, everything I wanted to work on. And I kind of weeded out what I didn't want to work on and who I didn't want to work with.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic kind of hit. Not kind of, it really hit. And, I was nervous for a little bit, but I kind of was like, we're going to ride this, see what happens. What can I do to kind of like shift really quickly?
Yeah.
So I sold a lot of merch and I donated part of, what I was making to the food bank. And then I sold discounted consulting services for businesses that were like looking to start during, the past few months, or like maintain or things like that. And that really helped me. But I also had developed, most of my social media clients that I do social media for, they've been my clients for like at least a year.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to have our relationship still be intact, but just, shift, and realize how much, people needed me.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the work I'm doing now is kind of like, I have an ice cream with Millie's. I'm working with Market Street Grocery. I have the shawarma at Peanut My Shawarma, because I think, especially, this year, people have realized how important it is to have a social media presence.
Absolutely.
And really think outside the box and
could you
get
have
creative.
a business? Realistically, can you have a business if you don't have a social media? And if you're not a business from 30 years ago already?
I don't think so. I had a very interesting call for legal consulting firms. So like recruiting firms for like law firms and things like that.
Yeah.
We're looking to merge. And someone had referred me to be their brand director. And I thought that was the craziest call, but something I was like so excited to, possibly have a hand in.
Yeah, something a little bit different.
Right. Because I definitely do a lot now that's not just focused around food.
Yeah.
Which I love and I definitely want to do more of that. But I think it forces me to be more creative, to have to be creative in a space that
you're not used to.
Exactly. Like I was like, yeah, let's do this. Like I know nothing about law recruiting, but I could learn.
Yeah.
Just like conversations like that. And just being in Pittsburgh, everything is so word of mouth. Like someone will hear of me that, like you reaching out, I was like, oh, like he's interviewed so many people that like I'm fans of. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It all is word of mouth, and it's like half the people that I talk to on here, it's like, yeah, I'm definitely particular on like how I curate it. Mm-hmm. Because I don't really have like questions too much whenever I interview people. I kind of just have to be interested in what you do, because like all the questions that I ask are just like completely like organic. And it's like what I'll do is I'll find someone, I'll go through their entire Instagram, basically, make sure they're not a piece of shit, and then just, kind of develop, my own personal questions about what you do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you can't do that. Like if I saw you somewhere at a restaurant, like I can't just sit down with you and talk with you for 2 hours. It's kind of weird.
Right.
Like
well,
a funeral,
especially now.
Yeah, especially now. Like a funeral director, if I wanted to learn about a funeral director, like I can't just talk to someone and just ask them about cutting up dead bodies in a restaurant. And this is a good way for me to be able to do it. But it's like, I'll talk to someone in here and they'll be like, oh, I know this person who does this. Like, I think it was Chad from Millie's who told me about Paul Family Farms. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you got to talk to Travis, and like, they're great people. Mm-hmm. And I would have never known about that. I would have never known about him. I would have never known half of these people that I've talked to, but it is such a word of mouth thing. It's definitely, I don't know. It's a benefit about it being like a smaller city.
Oh, I love it.
But it's interesting to think about like you working with other, avenues, like rather like not food, but rather like legal sides of things and like whatever other people that you work with, because if you have like a business that's mainly like food, you could obviously kind of like recycle tactics and like, the way you do things and like what works for other people. But it's like other jobs, you're more vulnerable because it's like you can't kind of write it this way. You can't just take a picture of a delicious sandwich and like kind of do that. So yeah, your creative end has to kind of be a little bit more, I guess you flex your creative muscle in a way.
Exactly. And, I think developing my own brand, like it's such a fun challenge to have to adapt to other brands and switch brand voices. And I think that's why me being a writer really helps.
Yeah.
Because it allows me to be able to do that really successfully.
Now, do you feel overwhelmed?
Sometimes.
Well, let's say before COVID, we'll get to the whole, adapting to the COVID world. But like before this, back last year, were you overwhelmed whenever you're like, are you overwhelmed with like, oh, I got to get a post out today. I got to come up with this and I got to do that. And, like, is it ever overwhelming to you that like, having to feel like you got to post shit every day?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I've definitely gotten to a place with my account where if I have to post something, like I'll make sure that that's ready like before I have to.
Yeah.
Like I'm really big on Google Calendar for
Well,
everything.
Not even have to. Whenever I say have to, I don't mean like,
or just like the pressure to feel like that I need to.
Yeah. Like I don't mean like an ad or like a sponsored ad or anything like that. But it's like, if you, some people say, oh, you got to be present on social media. You got to post something every day, every 2 days. Like, is that a certain pressure for you?
A little bit. It's a little bit of a good challenge.
Yeah.
But I think I've also gotten to a place where, there are so many other ways that you can post and engage.
Yeah.
Even when I do it for other clients, like I've had the conversation where it's like, do we post once a day, every day? Do we post twice a day, every day?
Yeah.
Do we post every other day? And, I think that also is something that comes with understanding a brand and what's successful. Like even for Hungry Girl, like I don't post every day.
Yeah.
Just because like it's successful for me. But I think it's also more so about, I always say quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I'll post a picture of myself and then I'll offset it with a picture of food. And then I have an awesome graphic designer who does some really cool memes. And she'll do graphics for some of my partnerships. But my Instagram stories get super high engagement too. So I always tell people, don't sleep on the different ways that you can connect with people.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I deal with that pressure.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
But even with like the clients I do social media for, because I've said yes to everything and I've realized what's not worth my time, that really helps me, create pretty set in place expectations on both ends.
Yeah.
Because I do own my own business. But that's crazy sometimes because I'm like, I have a client, but it's like, I'm not an employee of theirs. Like, we technically work together.
Yeah.
And it's like, nothing's really set in stone ever.
Yeah.
But it's also like the brands that I work on are brands that like I want to be creative within. So, sometimes posts take time, sometimes content takes time, but just being able to, keep up and address what expectations are on both sides because I do wear so many hats.
Yeah.
I think that kind of alleviates any pressure.
That makes sense. What about what about like a pressure to work with, obviously you're getting like, you're pretty big at what you do and like you do it well. So people are obviously like, I see you have done work with like McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts and like things like that. Now, for being someone, I've always been curious about this aspect. If you are someone who is as big as yourself and people approach you to do work with them, as far as like a sponsored ad, how do you separate, getting a check to working with people you want to work with? You know what I mean? Like
sometimes I think both align.
I mean, but do you ever have any experiences where someone wants to work with you but you don't?
I'll say no.
Okay, yeah.
I'll never work with a brand that I don't have some sort of connection to.
Okay.
Like even working with Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's.
Yeah.
Like when I did my Dunkin' Donuts post, like I did it in Oakland.
Yeah.
And when my freshman year at Pitt, I lived in Towers, and Towers is literally on the same block as that Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, okay.
So like in my caption, I was, like working with them, figuring out what they, wanted. And then kind of being like I literally had first dates in Dunkin' Donuts. So it was like kind of funny to like, be able to weave all these stories that I had there and be like, like, I love that this brings me back to Oakland type
That's
thing.
cool then.
But what I think also people don't realize is that some national brands are locally managed. So like working with McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts, like those PR social media firms are like Pittsburgh local.
Yeah.
So it's like I know those people, type thing. And I mean, even with McDonald's, like in my post, I was like swipe right to see a picture of me my senior year and like the booth on Forbes.
I think with the
French fry phone case.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's like those are things that so fit into like my life that, to me, it doesn't seem like it's like so far-fetched, like I'm just getting paid to post about things that I already love.
Yeah, things that you love already, and like that's like the goal of it. But I mean, I'm sure that you have people that like approach you that,
and I'll say no.
Okay, well that's good then.
Just because I think also having a journalistic background, like ethics is so important.
Yeah.
Like I just, and also having this connection with my followers, like I answer all my DMs. Or I try to, sometimes I get a little overwhelming. But, like, I'll answer and people will be like, wow, thanks for answering. just, like, things like that. And it's just, like, yeah, like, I'm a human. Like, this is kind of, what I'm here for.
Well, that's what I love about it is because, like, like, there's definitely brands that are just, like, there's a skin thing every day. People are just beating you over the head with it. But it's, like, to be able to have the control to be able to, like, turn down just a check. That's an easy check for you if you want it, but it's like whenever the ethics come into play, and like that's where I come in, and I'm not saying I'm beating people away from working with them, but it's like I just could not work with a company, and like that's why like I'm so thankful to like have Turners, because like I grew up on it, like every that was like the lifeblood of like my family and like the city. So to work with them is like not like, it's not like I'm doing any work. It's like I'm obviously,
that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, and it's just like I'm proud to be able to say that I work with them because like I love what they do, and
exactly.
like same thing with like streets,
and then that you're that
or
much more
anything.
invested in it.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's the authenticity behind it. It's like I'm not lying and being like, oh, there's this and that, and it doesn't sound fake.
Right.
It's like people aren't dumb. They know whenever you're trying to like don't treat me like an idiot. It's like if you're reading what you're writing and it's just a quick sell, like people can understand that.
Exactly.
And that's why I feel like it's easy to kind of see that what you do is more than just like it's not just collecting a check. It's like you're developing something that you want, that like you're cultivating.
And so much goes on, like behind the scenes. It's like, the emailing and like, the figuring out the logistics. And then it's like,
oh, for sure,
the content creation and like, coming up with the concept and like, how long is it going to run for? Like, is there going to be a code? What's the swipe up link? What's the hashtag?
Yeah. Like, so for you to do this with like working with like Dunkin' and McDonald's and stuff like that, it's like, do you, like, is the process of that, like, do you tell them, oh, I'm going to have a photo like this and like it's going to say this?
It definitely depends on like what the expectations are.
Yeah.
And more so national brands will ask to approve like your photos or your copy before you post.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like they'll share it with the client.
Yeah.
Air quotes. And I usually say like don't change the voice, but like if there is something like technically that you want me to change, like they're so picky about like wordings and like capitalizations and like all that, all those things, like that's kind of a case where like it's like more specific.
I've always been interested in that end of it all.
But I mean when I worked with McDonald's, well, that was like kind of the case when I just worked with Dunkin', but they didn't change anything.
That's
and
cool.
I had full creative range over like what the photos looked like and the stories, because the way I kind of pitch myself is like my most popular like package is 1 in-feed post and 3 stories, and they usually people usually love that, and then I just kind of really have creative freedom as far as like what those all look like. That's the only thing I ask. Like if someone wants to work with me and they're like, here are like the promos to post, I'm like, no. Like I have a graphic designer, I am a content creator, like I'm going to create the content, and
100%.
I think that's the appeal, is that like I create the content, so like it fits in with how I post, what I
it's
post.
like that's what you want out of it. It's like you don't want to
Exactly.
like if you want to post it, just post it on your account. But if you want me to
Exactly.
just regurgitate something that you have,
like I don't do that.
Yeah, that's great, and I feel like that's you could tell that you don't just do that from what you do, and that was like one of the things I like approached Turner's with, because it's like they were the first people that wanted to work with me, and I was pumped about that. But I just told him in the beginning, it was like I would love to work with you, but it's just like I cannot have any sort of like expectations. I will do it the best way that I could do it. I'll do it like this. I'm not gonna make an ass out of yins or anything, but like you just got to have faith in what I do with it.
Exactly.
And I think that the brands that are open enough to be able to do that is like it makes it fun.
And that should be the whole point, that you want to work with influencers anyway.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure. Now, obviously, we're in this crazy world of COVID, and for you to be someone who is, working with these, I mean, would you say what's the percentage of food-related people you work with? Like 75?
I'd say like 70.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients that I do social media for are non-food. Like I have a really big eyeglasses client.
Oh, wow.
And then I have a dry cleaning company.
Okay.
And then I think I have another non-food one that I'm blanking on. And I do like a lot of ghostwriting. Like I've done ghostwriting for like a heating and cooling company.
Yeah.
Like things like that.
Now, I'm curious as far as like, obviously with COVID, things are shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go to a bunch of restaurants. I mean, now it's kind of blurry, but before you could not go to restaurants at all. So being someone who runs, your business, obviously, yeah, you're running a business where you're working for other people, but someone for your business, you obviously focus on food there. Mm-hmm. Now, what are some of like the problems that you've had to, navigate around with this? I mean, you can't go to a restaurant and just get a nice plated dish. Mm-hmm. And, like what was that experience for you?
I definitely, kind of had to change direction.
Yeah.
I sold a lot of merch, and I did discounting consulting. That kind of was like a huge chunk of my work from like March to July.
Yeah.
And then the clients that I was doing social media for, I was helping them navigate a pandemic. Like I could literally add like communicating on behalf of a business via social media during like a pandemic, like just navigating for these other businesses that I did social media for, like how are we going to tackle this? Like I played a huge part in that. So it kind of was just like adapting, to what worked for them, what worked for me.
It's obviously something that no one's ever experienced either.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. And like it's still such a gray area, but I think there came a point where, I think probably like July, it kind of was just like, all right, like it's this, like, especially for restaurants, it's like, it's summer, it's warm outside. Like this is the time. What are we doing?
Yeah.
And even like early pandemic, a lot of like, restaurants and like restaurant suppliers like shifted to like providing just boxes of ingredients to the public. And that kind of played into, me cooking. I love to cook.
Yeah, I talked to Chef's Warehouse, and they
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Originally were just people that supplied restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
but in order to like offset things, they offered at-home grocery delivery, which is like, it was cool to see like the creativity that brands would, come up with to try to like offset all this like, crazy deficit that they were going to like be put in.
Yeah.
And because it all just happened in like, a 2-day span, and you have people that have like full kitchens full of food, and you're trying to like come up with that. And it's like, it's such an interesting, like, problem that had to be solved.
Right.
But so during this time where people could like kind of do things outside and like kind of, do the outdoor seating and things like that, that obviously opened up, a little bit more wiggle room to be able to like, do what you needed to do. Right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Now, as someone who has ethics, with food and things like that during a pandemic. Things that I have recognized is like, I'm not someone who goes on Yelps and critiques people because, I know that it's a crazy, chaotic symphony, and all these kitchens and all these people are just dealing with things that they're not used to. So why would I go bash someone on Yelp for, a cold meal? But it's like, I do notice that I miss being able to go to a restaurant and like have a hot food that comes to you and things like that, things that are plated well, that are supposed to be like that. And, do you notice that? Did you notice that in your like line of work? It's like the lack of, I don't want to say lack of quality, because it wasn't quality. It's not like people were not paying close attention to their food, but it's like not all food is made to be taken out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Definitely. And I think a lot of restaurants in Pittsburgh weren't doing takeout to begin with.
Yeah.
And, like to survive, you needed to learn how to do takeout.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think just as far as, in dining experiences versus like, at home, that was such a huge shift. A great example of that is Dianoia's. They would sell their deconstructed, gnocchi bowl kits or like pizza kits or like, family style meals.
Yeah.
Kind of just being able to cater to the masses type thing.
Yeah, and it
like
was great too. We got a bunch of them during it.
Oh yeah.
So good.
I had some too. Their gnocchi's amazing.
It was, you did notice like a lot of places like, coming up with like, the meal sets and like, the to-go cocktails and things like that. And it's like, yeah, you had to like trying to change your approach to like what you were doing, because it's like you can go to a restaurant and have someone give you a nice plate of food and you could take a nice photo of it. And, it kind of is a good way to showcase it.
Right.
But it's like, can you showcase it the same way at home?
Exactly.
And, kind of have it carry over that way. I thought that was interesting though, because like I remember talking to Matt at Streets and he was like, dude, some things just aren't made to be takeout, like you can't take some things out.
Exactly.
And I remember him saying that like someone complained about like, a meal that they had because like it was kind of just in a box together. And he's like, dude, like, what do you expect? Like,
exactly.
It's like
you're
what
not
can we
eating it
do?
out. Yeah.
But I thought that part was interesting. Now, do you, like, with the concerns of, like, we're kind of like, I don't know what level we're at now, but some places are open where you can go and dine in. Obviously, it's, I don't know. Some people are just like, I'm not going out to eat ever again right now. Some people are like, I'm going to go. Like, where do you stand with all this?
Yeah. So I'm conflicted as far as, just kind of thinking about, some restaurants are open for dine-in, outside, inside of restaurants.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think since March, I have dined out less than 10 times.
Really? Mm-hmm. I probably am around there too. Yeah.
It's just, especially, coming from a place where that was my job.
Yeah.
It's hard to not be sad, watching, my friends come up to me and like, take our orders and, they're wearing a mask.
Yeah.
I used to live at Dianoia's.
Yeah.
Literally, I still joke that I pay the rent, but like I was there breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yeah, I mean,
brunch.
It's a great place.
Yeah, breakfast and brunch are not to be confused. They had like that whole takeout menu at lunch.
Yeah.
Like the best sandwiches. I would always sit at the bar. Like I was just always there. And their inside was closed for the longest time.
Yeah.
So I think also living like in Southside, there's so much like food over there.
Yeah.
I do a lot of takeout. My boyfriend also likes to eat, and we live on opposite ends of East Carson.
Yeah.
So we like always joke that like we're 15 blocks apart, but like we meet in the middle because we just like eat everywhere.
Yeah.
So like even pretty early on, a lot of restaurants like that I would post from would be like, wow, thank you so much. Like that kind of was the highest influence that I saw on my end, was that I would post from somewhere and then they would message me and be like, thank you, like X amount of people came in or like something like that.
Yeah.
So I think like for me, I know that a lot of people are just trying to do it as safely as possible.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
It is hard. I mean, and I kind of, like you not it's not really ethics, but it's just like I have a transparency on here, and it's like I've noticed that I've gone to eat at a couple places, and it's like, you know, you go in there and it's like you walk in with a mask on, and then you go and sit down, and then you can just take a mask off.
Exactly.
And you know, the one place I went, I was sitting like, you know, pretty damn near close to the next person, and you're like, what's different about this right now? It's like, how is this
exactly
any different than, you know, just being what it regularly was, besides for like, you know, the limited amount of people in there? But it's just like,
Right.
as someone who's in that profession, it's like,
and then what do you do? Do you leave? Like, do you tell, you know, like,
yeah,
how do you handle
it's such a
something like
hard
that?
situation, because it's like, you know, we have, you know, a good group of people that believe that this is all bullshit, which is ridiculous. And then you have another group of people that are like, you know, super protective of it, and like, you know, always wearing everything. And it's like, I almost feel like an asshole, you know what I mean? Like, if I
Totally.
go to eat at some place and like, you know, I see, you know, on the news the numbers are going up, and it's like, you know, am I an asshole for doing this? But it's like, you know, I just was curious on your thoughts of it as someone who would go eat all the time, and you know what that is.
Yeah, I definitely haven't as much.
Yeah. It's definitely a hard.
I've done a lot of outside seating.
Yeah.
Or like I'll do takeout, and then there's so many places to eat outside in the South Side, or like even where I live, like I would eat outside.
Yeah.
But you know, kind of again in like, you know, a selfish way. Like, you know, the whole experience is just so different. So
Yeah.
like, it's like, why, you know, I don't want to do that.
100%. Yeah, the experiences are different, and you know, it's definitely, you know, it's just a different dynamic of what it is.
Right. Like you can't just go sit at a bar, or like, you know, run up to someone that you know. It's like, you know, like what do you do with your hands almost?
Yeah, it's such a weird thing to think about. It's because like you would go down to like streets or something, and like you'd sit in there for, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you would just see 1,000 people you would know.
Yeah.
And it was just such like a feeling of like community.
Exactly.
And now it's just like, it's so like very, very like bizarre, and you know, you can't see anyone, and
Totally.
you know, there's something weird about not
And, like,
being able to.
plastic up. You
Oh, I know, but there's something weird about not being able to see someone's like mouth. You know,
Oh yeah.
you can see
so
their
much,
eyes.
It's so much harder to, you know, understand someone.
Yeah, it really is. It's so much harder to understand someone, and it's so much harder to like, you know, kind of, you know, just, you know, connect with them to a certain extent. But yeah, it's the question that everyone is asking, because obviously you're someone that's in food. People that look at your Instagram, you know, they're probably, you know, they probably do wonder like what your thoughts are. Like, do you think it is safe of some of the restaurants, like with
And
the
I know
practices
a lot
that
of them
they
are
have?
working hard.
Oh, I know that. And like, I don't want people that are listening to this, and I'm not asking you this to like, you know, put you in any sort of position.
Right.
And if you don't want to answer it, that's fine too. But I am curious about it. It's like, do you feel that situation is safe compared to like, you know, them being the same way?
Right.
It's
I don't know. I it's just so crazy, because it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Like I can't help but like hope that yes, like, you know, taking like 6 feet apart safety measures, and like closed tables, and like, you know, I try to keep my mask on until like,
Yeah.
you know, drinks come, and then it's like, you know, mask on while I sip, and then like mask, you know, off when the food comes.
Yeah.
You know, because I also come from a place where it's like, you know, I would never want to offend, you know, my waiter.
Yeah,
or, you
yeah.
know, like anyone on the staff.
Yeah. And it's like you want to keep people
but it's just
around
so
you
much
safe
unknown.
as well.
Yeah, you know, like you have to really think through where you're moving and what you're doing that much more.
I agree with that. Now, what about so obviously we're in the COVID world right now, and the game is kind of changed with what you're doing. But you know, I also feel like the silver lining of all this is, you know, people are getting more creative. You know, things are changing in a way that, you know, is obligating places to kind of, you know, change their you know, like people have had the same menus forever. You know, it's a silver lining is that people are like changing things up, and like, you know, you're getting a little bit of a different experience with it. And like, you know, for what it is, it's like, you know, people are trying. It's like, you can't put it past people that they're trying to make things work.
Right.
And it's like these people, excuse me, it's like these people, it's like they have a living too. So it's like, what, like working with these different brands, and like, obviously I'm sure that you're, you know, pretty up to date on what other people are doing. Like, what have you seen by some restaurants that are like, opportunities for people to support them? You know, you could do the takeout and everything like that, but like, what else have you seen from people? Like,
Well, it's been really cool to see, you know, even for places that weren't doing delivery.
yeah,
I just worked with 23rd and Vine in the South Side.
that's a restaurant,
It's a wine shop,
wine shop.
but they have a really great patio. You know, all the tables are really spread out. They're wearing masks. And we just did a wine collaboration that was also available for delivery.
Ah, okay.
So it's really cool, you know, to kind of see places that offer delivery. I love Market Street Grocery.
Yeah.
We have a collaboration right now, which is like a dinner box.
Yeah.
For 2 or for 4.
Oh,
We
okay.
make these really crazy Thanksgiving sandwiches. I don't know if you saw
Oh, I did see it.
with
Yeah,
the stuffing bread.
I did see it.
But they do groceries for delivery and wine for delivery. So, you know, all these things that I think are a little bit more accessible. I've go puffed more than I've dined out. I'll
Yeah.
put it that way.
Now, for you to, you know, kind of, you know, obviously you have these collaborations with different brands. Pita My Shawarma, Millie's is what I just saw recently. I saw that whenever I was in Market District, and I was like,
cool.
wow, that's pretty crazy. That was what
Oh, I'm so glad you saw that.
I did see it. So, like, how does this come into play? It's like, you know, these are big brands around the city. It's like, you know, what is the process of someone to get their own Millie's ice cream?
Honestly,
And how did you choose the flavor?
Very good point. It honestly comes from like organic relationships first.
Yeah.
You know, me just coming here loving Millie's. I was a brand ambassador when they did that in 2019.
Yeah.
And then Lauren, that's married to Chad, I had her on my podcast. She was the 3rd episode, I think. And she's incredible. I you know, also befriended someone else at Millie's, and then the first flavor we did was also a Dianoia's.
Oh yeah, the
And I
Italian
love
cookies,
Dave and
right?
Amy. Yes, I love Dave and Amy. Rachel, the pastry chef there. It kind of was just this like 3-way collaboration that really blew up. I never thought I would like get my logo on a pint of ice cream, let alone one that you could find like in Giant Eagle.
Yeah.
But you know, all of these could just really stem from either really organic relationships or word of mouth. Like Jason that owns Pita My Shawarma, we went to Pitt together. Like I'm pretty
Okay.
sure we joked that we like had a class together.
Oh wow.
And when he first
I have
started,
never been there yet.
Oh, you have to. I mean, he just started as a food truck. And
I know.
Even then, we worked together. We did this like mango habanero salsa that like blew up. Like it was so spicy, made your mouth hurt.
Justin Boyd was the first person who like told me about that place,
yeah.
and it was closed down whenever he
He
told me
just
about it.
opened his brick and mortar.
Yeah, and I was like, damn, I got to get over there.
Yeah, he's in Lawrenceville now, which is really cool to see.
I definitely got to get over there.
He's so talented, works so hard. So we kind of had that relationship, and you know, we kind of saw the success of working together, and then what that could look like, kind of, you know, indefinitely.
Yeah, plus you probably love the food, so it's like,
Oh, yeah.
who wouldn't want a sandwich?
Right, and like sauces are my favorite.
Yeah,
So like now we have a sriracha aioli. Like my phone case used to be a hot sauce bottle.
oh yeah,
You know, so it's really cool to. At the end of the day, my brand is literally just everything that I love.
yeah, that what you love.
Yeah, so it's just so awesome to, you know, be able to like sell that, but like when people like send me that they've tried it or like they'll tag me, I'm like thank you, but like I'm like, what did you think?
Yeah, that's
you know, like
super
I get
cool.
so amped because, you know, I'm just like, I created something that I would eat.
Yeah.
And then like I love to see other people loving it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like I just started the sandwich boxes with Market Street Grocery, and Dave, one of the owners, said he went to Pita My Shawarma because Cody had the lemonade stand there.
Yeah.
And he said that the person in front of him ordered the Hungry Girl special.
Oh,
And he was
wow.
like, I wish I could have taped it because like he was like, that was literally just perfect.
Yeah, that's
you know,
awesome.
so like people are like asking for like a Hungry Girl special.
Yeah,
you know?
like, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Now the ice cream.
I should have brought a pint.
That's all right.
I'll bring you one next time.
Okay.
I have so many in my freezer.
All right. Well, then that's I'll pick someone up for sure. Now, how do you come up with the flavor?
So for the one that we have currently, the s'mores, that was supposed to be. Millie's ran a Hungry Month contest last February, so like pre-corona. They had people come in for the whole month minus a cheat day, and
Yeah.
like if you spent like I think $4 minimum, they like stamped it, and then if you came in every day for that month, you'd be entered to create your own custom flavor that I would help you create, and it would be sold in all Millie's and then Giant Eagle.
Oh wow.
And then COVID happened, but they
Yeah.
had the winners. Like runner ups got like a free pint for like the rest of the year.
Wow.
And this amazing woman, Cynthia, was the winner. She is like a mama too. I got an email probably in August that like they were ready to like be able to mix it, because Millie's had just moved like right before Corona.
Yeah.
You know, to create a specialty flavor, it just wasn't like feasible for anyone.
Yeah.
So we met like social distance to brainstorm with, one of the flavor masterminds at Millie's, and I kind of went in with a few ideas, but I kind of wanted Cynthia to have the reins on it, and I kind of would just assist with my crazy ideas.
Yeah.
And she said that her daughter loved marshmallow, so I was like, why don't we do like an elevated s'more flavor? And that kind of was how we got to where we are now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's it's cool because it's like, I see them things just randomly, like the Pittsburgh companies that you see in a market district, and you're just like, I wonder how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to hear the story behind it.
Yeah, that's it. And Millie's is super awesome because, they're so focused on what they put into their ice creams.
Yeah, talking to Chad was so cool.
Yeah, he's awesome. He said if I ever wanted an ice cream tattoo, he'd pay for it. So I already have the pizza tattoo. I'm just waiting for, when I should get the ice cream tattoo, and then I'll hit him up.
It's like I'm usually someone who likes a texture with my ice cream. Like, it has to have some sort of, shit in it or...
Right.
But it's like... I think I told Chad that too. I was like, he's the only just ice cream that I really, really enjoy just because of like the flavor. Like the coffee there, the Vietnamese coffee is probably my favorite of all time.
Right.
And it's just like,
It's so good.
the waffle cones. I mean,
Oh
like,
my God, yeah.
You can't beat it.
100%.
But before I talked to him, I don't think I've ever had it. I've lived here forever.
Right.
I don't think I ever had it until like a week before I talked to him, and I was like blown away by it. And then I took my wife there, and she's obsessed with it now. And it's so cool. Like all these people that are around the city, they're doing all this wild stuff.
Yeah.
And like I was thinking about like what you do specifically. Like it's cool because you could have your hand in all of it. You know what I mean? And it's like you're not just focused on one certain thing.
Yeah, I do it all.
Yeah, and like that's what's so like fun to me to like think about. It's like, I have a Thanksgiving sandwich and like some ice cream and a shawarma. And
it's more than just the picture.
Yeah, and
like
it's
people
super
are like,
cool.
wow, it must be nice to eat food all day. I'm like, oh, you have no idea.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine. Like for me to do this podcast by myself and find people and communicate with the people, like that's the biggest.
Right.
To try to set up times with people, and like you were very, very easy to set up time with, which was
well, because I get how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like, but other people don't get out of it. Like last second, you're like, oh, I can't come today, and you're just like, God, it's like it ruins it for me. But
Right, like you have a schedule.
Yeah, I have a schedule, and it's like this is shit that I do every week, and it's like I need the time to edit it and record it, and it's like it takes a lot of time. So I can't even imagine you managing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do as a human being outside of work? Then, whenever it's not just food, obviously you love food, but it's like, what other kind of things do you like to do?
Right. That's a great question.
Yeah, it's like, I haven't stopped for a minute. Like,
I know, literally. I'm like, wait, what do I do? I mean, I feel like I'm always eating, even like when it's not work. I'm really good about like separating the two.
That's good. And you cook a lot, you said?
I do.
That's
I
good.
love cooking. I have an Italian cooking music playlist on
Oh, wow.
Spotify. I'll cook that I'll use that even when I'm not cooking Italian.
Yeah.
But I'm still really into fashion. I love vintage thrift consignment shopping.
Yeah.
And I live in the South Side, so I'm at Highway Robbery a lot and Zed's.
Yeah, they're both great.
Yeah,
They both had such interesting stories
Oh,
too.
yeah. And Avalon Exchange in Squirrel Hill. So I love shopping, which is probably not the best for my wallet, but
Yeah.
that's okay. And then I also love being outside when I can. I love walking.
Yeah.
Like that's all I did during COVID, honestly, was just like walk the trails
Yeah, I think
of the South Side. I try to walk 4 miles a day.
Did you walk 25 blocks to Dose?
Yes, I
Is
did.
that what it said? Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, like, yeah, like that's fun stuff to do. I mean, you can only do a certain amount of things.
Yeah, and I'll put like a podcast on or like some music. I have a record player.
Yeah.
I love record shopping. So I'll try to do that. I do love traveling, and going to, New Jersey when I can.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard, especially now. That's why, I got away to Cleveland for a second just to like get out of here, because it's easy to feel complacent.
Now, like how hard, like how conscious are you of like, kind of, spreading the roots out a little bit more than just like Pittsburgh. I mean,
right.
Obviously we only have so many brands here, so many like restaurants here. It's like, I'm kind of in that place with the podcast. It's like, yeah, I talk to all these people around here, but it's like, I'm not just limited to Pittsburgh. It's just like, that's what is in my grasp right now.
Yeah.
But I'm open to talk to other people, and I'm sure you're open to go try other things and do all that.
Totally.
So it's like, how do you approach that?
Well, right now, I mean, it's
you can't really do
hard.
that now.
Even going to Cleveland, I was like, that would be cool to kind of expand out here.
Yeah.
But that's just, I don't think it's the safest.
Yeah.
Right
Plus,
now.
it's like, I don't think it's the proper environment to like, for someone to showcase what they have. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, I was thinking about that a lot. It's like, trying a restaurant for the first time during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't rate someone off of that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's not, it's not like the true experience.
Yeah, it's not the true experience. I read a Yelp review that was just ridiculous. Someone was like, oh, this, that, it was cold, like whatever, this. And I'm just like, what do you even want? It's like, you're lucky you could even get something else.
Exactly.
And it's like, throw these people a break. Have
Right.
you ever worked in the food industry?
So I have not. I've worked retail, but food is not one that I have.
It's I never really worked in that. I was a barista for a minute.
Okay.
I worked at a pizza shop for a minute, but I always like go back to like, I filled in at Streets for a few days until they found someone to do it. So I was a food runner there, and it's like, I'm great friends with Matt and Lauren, beautiful people. They have a great establishment down there.
Yeah, I love that.
And I never had any experience of what a kitchen was like until I went to that place. And, he only has a 50-seat spot, and it was chaos. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I call it a chaotic symphony up there. So it's like, people that don't ever have never worked in any sort of like food industry or anything like that are so like critical of like
they
everything.
Don't understand what
they
goes
just
on
don't
behind
get
the
it.
scenes.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I was going with it, but it pisses me off whenever I read about terrible reviews.
Oh, 100%.
And it's like, what can you even do? It's like, come on now.
And it's also like so many conversations I've had. It's like, in this age where everyone not only has an opinion, but can have an opinion, and it's so public.
Yeah.
I think we totally skipped over the place of like relaying such a negative review like to the restaurant itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think people
just want other people to read it rather than just like
why wouldn't you want to help the restaurant be better?
Exactly. Instead of like,
especially now.
Instead of like, going to them and like giving your feedback to them and giving them a chance to, correct it and like, come correct the next time. They just want to put it out in the air and just be like, this place is fucking trash. Like, you don't want nothing to do with it. And you're just like,
right.
Like, how does that make any sense at all? Like, what do you do in life? And what if someone did that to you?
Exactly.
It's like everyone has a bad day.
Exactly. I forget who does this or who said it, but someone said they have a 3-visit rule.
Oh, I like that.
And I really like that.
Yeah,
Unless it's like something that's like bad.
Yeah.
I kind of try to follow that. Like I don't Yelp.
Well, and that's I think I even looked up to see if you had a Yelp.
I do.
Well,
but I haven't used it.
Yeah, like
in a while.
But I don't think
But it's not under Hungry Girl.
Yeah, well, that's what I was looking at, but I just didn't know if like if I was gonna look and see like, oh, I'm a verified Yelp person, and it's like people just go there I feel like that a lot of them people that are verified Yelp people just go to places in search of, the juicy being a negative story or something like that.
Exactly.
I have 1,000 reviews on Yelp. It's like, come on, who gives a shit?
Right. And it's like, I mean, at least like I kind of view what I do as like, I'm not going to post about it if it's not something that I like love.
Yeah.
Or that I visit all the time.
Now, that brings me to something real quick before we get to the ending segment. It's like, whenever you do have a negative experience, how do you navigate that and keep your ethics?
Yes. Unless it's like a very bad experience. Like I had a very bad experience with somewhere downtown.
Yeah.
But like on like a manager level.
Yeah.
Just as far as like just like service type thing.
Yeah.
And I like posted an Instagram story about that, but that was like 2016 or like, like around then.
Yeah.
I won't like create a post. And then every partnership I have, I'm like, hey, if I don't like the product or like the experience, like I'm not going to share about it.
Yeah.
Type thing. Just to also keep those ethics. Like I'm not going to share something that I'm like, this sucks.
And do people, whenever you tell people that, do they understand the importance of it?
I think they kind of glaze over it.
Oh, yeah?
A little bit.
That's interesting.
Or, I think most people are kind of fixated with like, do you eat everything you post?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, of course I do. I mean, like, it's not, I didn't eat that today.
Yeah.
But
like, have you given people feedback where you're like, hey, like this wasn't my favorite, like I'm not going to post about that? Like, do people...
Or I think now it's more so like anything that I post that's not sponsored, there's like less expectations around.
Yeah.
Like I really try to have like a divide between like if I'm eating for work or like for fun.
Yeah.
So like I really haven't taken too many food pictures recently because I've just been like so in the moment, like, or like so hungry type thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, nice because I would hate if like every time I ate, it was my job.
Yeah. It takes away, the love of it. It's
exactly.
Like once you add money and, constraints,
right.
It takes away the love of it.
Right. But like if I do take a picture, and like I didn't love it or something like that, I'll try to give feedback.
Yeah.
But like privately.
Are you super critical of what you do yourself?
As far as like how I cook?
Not even that. Just as far as like, obviously you probably know, you know a lot of people that are taking photos for you, but like before, like, are you critical of like the way things look in your post and like how you take photos of things? Like, are you a big critic on the things that you do?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of what I post is taken on my phone.
Yeah.
I have an 11 Pro, so like the camera game has definitely like become stronger in the past
crazy.
few years.
You don't even need a DSLR anymore.
And it's interesting because a lot of people that I work with or like I'll do social media for, they're like, can you use your phone and not your camera?
Yeah.
Just because you get so much more like relatability in a iPhone photo that looks really nice. So like lighting is my best friend.
Yeah.
I will usually never use flash.
Yeah.
And if I do, that goes to my Instagram story, not my feed.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think that's a flash, using flash on like a food.
It's not
like,
conducive
picture.
with the rest.
I'll try to do like natural lighting. And then I edit my pictures, but like I'm not like photoshopping. It's just like up the saturation a little bit, maybe the brightness.
Yeah.
Move over the contrast.
That's good then. Like you're not putting like crazy sort of constraints on yourself where you're like,
no,
I got to edit out like a wrinkle in the tablecloth or some shit.
No, I don't look at that.
Okay,
just because I know my followers aren't like, you know, they're not looking at that.
And I think that that's such like a refreshing, thought because it's like, I'm super critical if I hear like, that on like if I like smack the microphone thing, I'm like, like that's annoying. I got to cut that out.
Right.
But it's like I don't give a shit about that, and I feel like people don't really care. That's
it kind
not what
of adds
they're here.
Like they're there type thing.
Yeah, like I interviewed a guy at Dirty Harry's Bicycle Shop. We interviewed at the point, mid pandemic, sitting 12 foot away. It was almost like it was such a weird interview. As far as like, us being that far away, I had the mics like, strung out, but it's like you could hear people behind you. You could hear like the ambiance of it all. And like, I love that. I think it adds a whole different, kind of flavor to what you're doing. And I think that, whenever you don't have them crazy constraints, it lets you add, your personality to it and things like that.
Definitely. And I think like even now there's so much less pressure for things to be perfect because it's not relatable.
Yeah.
Like I've like dabbled in like posting like super professional photos and like seeing, the results because I do love being creative and, testing things.
Absolutely.
And the response isn't as, high or engaging as like a photo I, take on my phone.
Yeah. It's almost like too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And I also try to think of it like, as far as like environment, like it's like, I think people also relate to like, things that are in relatable settings.
Yeah.
So like when I posted that photo of Dose, like it literally was in the takeout box.
Like, it's like
at my kitchen table.
Yeah, you didn't
the cheese was I didn't like play with it at all.
Exactly. And like that's what I feel like, people that are professionals might misconceptualize the feeling of having to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the people that have the untrained eye, they're not looking for you to like make sure this farmer's cheese is not on the side of the box or some shit like that.
Or like that the sauce isn't smudged.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like that's what you're getting. You know what I mean? It's like you're putting the real thing there.
Right. Exactly.
It is. It's interesting. Okay, so I'm looking at the podcast now. We're already at 2 hours. We have to
oh my God.
get to the ending segment. But we could talk for a long time. Like, I think you're great at it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so the ending segment that I do with all my guests on the podcast is an ending segment called Desert Island Questions.
Everybody gather up, please. I think this is a perfect opportunity for all of us to participate in some really intense, psychologically revealing conversations. So we're going to be playing Desert Island.
Desert Island Questions is where I give each of my guests 3 categories to take with them on a desert island to exhaust until expulsion. And I'm sorry for cutting off, our conversation to move to this ending segment.
No, that's okay.
It'll be too long of a podcast.
2 hours, that's crazy.
It is crazy. It's, time flies when you're having fun.
It's true.
Okay, so the first category of Desert Island Questions is 3 things to watch. So you get to pick 3 things to take with you on a desert island to watch over and over and over again.
Ooh. Sex and the City. I'm trying to think of all the things I've rewatched.
Yeah.
I've watched so much, but I try not to repeat.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
The first 4 seasons of One Tree Hill.
Oh, that's good too.
Parts Unknown.
That's a good answer. You got so much of that. That'll take up a lot of time. Okay, so I usually ask people for the next category is 3 books to take with you on a desert island question on the desert island, but I kind of want to switch that up. If you could eat from 3 restaurants in the city, just over and over and over again, could you answer that, or is that?
I can, but I'm nervous.
Why are you nervous?
Because that's such a loaded question.
I know it's loaded, but I mean, like
just 3 restaurants.
3 restaurants. You could have the whole menu from each place, but you can only pick 3 of them.
Smiling Banana Leaf.
I've never even heard of that. Where's that?
Highland Park.
Wow.
Best Thai food in the city.
Oh, maybe Hal told me about that, I think.
Do you like Thai food?
Oh, yeah. Smiling Banana Leaf.
Their wonton soup. Like,
Wow.
I drink it.
I might go there tomorrow,
Oh, my
actually.
God, please.
Smiling Banana Leaf.
It's so good. And they have the best crab rangoons.
Oh
my God. I'm
my
like
wife is
salivating thinking
she's a
about
big
Oh,
she's
you
a
have
big
to go.
critique of them.
Their pad thai is also really great.
Smiling Banana Leaf. Okay.
Oh, so this isn't as hard as I thought. I could do this.
Okay.
So yeah, Smiling Banana Leaf at number 1.
This isn't hard.
No, definitely not hard. It also just depends on my mood,
I get it, yeah.
Like, what am I craving? Do they have to be in Pittsburgh?
No, I'll allow different ones. Go ahead.
There's this bagel place near where I grew up called Sam's.
Sam's Bagels.
Best bagels.
Okay.
I need a Taylor ham mac and cheese.
Okay.
Taylor ham is like a Jersey thing.
I know about that just because
great,
of Joey
perfect.
Diaz.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I'll keep the last one in Pittsburgh to, keep it here. The Colombian spot.
Oh, okay.
I love
down
that
on South
burritos.
Side.
Wait, no. I take that. Okay, can I add a 4th?
Yeah.
Carson Street Deli.
Oh,
I was like, where's the place on East Carson I'm literally at twice a week? And
I
that's
just
it.
took my wife there for the first time. She loved it.
Oh my God.
It's-
I'll walk in and they'll be like, hey, Jess.
What did she have? She had a sandwich that I usually just get the buffalo chicken every time I'm there.
Okay.
And just get the best blue cheese, but she got like this beefy cheesy, I think it's called.
Okay, yeah.
It was like the best hoagie I've ever had.
Oh my God. My boyfriend and I are trying to eat the whole menu.
Oh, it's
We're
so
coming
good.
pretty close.
It's really, really great.
Yeah, we'll get 2 sandwiches and then each eat a half of one.
Yeah, that's the way you got to do it.
That's what we did today.
That's the best thing.
They make a really good club.
I haven't tried that
Do you like
yet.
pastrami?
Yes.
Their hot pastrami mama is pastrami, peppers, onions, provolone, and then get it with the honey mustard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'll get that too.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so the third category is 3 things to listen to. So you get to pick 3 CDs.
Okay. Oh, like whole CDs?
Yes.
Or like whole albums?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of all the records I have and what I would listen to and repeat.
That's right.
I feel like I listen to like so many individual songs. Album wise, though, SZA's album,
Yeah.
I could listen to that nonstop. I really like Snow Allegra. If you've ever listened to her,
Snow Allegra.
she's like R&B.
Okay.
She has an album called "Ugh, Those Feels Again." That got me like through the winter. Essentially, that's one of
Okay.
my favorites. What more? I love swimming.
I
I have that on vinyl.
Absolutely amazing. We listened to that on the way home from West Virginia because it was like raining.
Yeah. Oh,
And my wife was just like, this is fucked up. Like, she was like, this is ridiculous that like we're just listening to this and he just ain't here no more.
yeah.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I have that and Circles on vinyl.
Just incredible. It's all incredible. Really, really a shame that he's gone. I was thinking, it would probably be either him or Michael Keaton. If I can interview anyone from Pittsburgh, it would probably be one of them two.
Yeah.
I think they
That'd
would
be
both.
cool to have Michael Keaton on.
Michael Keaton would be fucking fascinating. Okay, so the fourth question that I ask is the death row meal. So you could have whatever you want to eat from wherever, as much as you want. One meal before you die.
Okay, I have it.
What is it?
Okay, so there's this diner in New Jersey called TikTok Diner.
Okay.
I would have a cheeseburger deluxe. So that's American cheese, raw onion, lettuce, tomato, with waffle disco fries. Disco fries are a New Jersey thing. It's like cheese and gravy on top.
Oh wow.
I'll show you a picture after this.
Okay.
With a side of onion rings
Okay.
and a Diet Coke and a black and white milkshake.
That's chocolate vanilla. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a good answer.
And then an order of regular fries just to have.
Okay.
To drown in ketchup,
Might as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that works. Now I have a segment that's called the Turner's Crate. I'm sponsored by Turner's, and I usually let people pick out of this crate, which has questions submitted by all the previous guests. But I've been running this question the last few because I think it is very, very interesting. So if you could walk into a gas station and only pick one snack,
oh my gosh.
one snack, it can only be one thing.
I'm literally a pro snacker. You have no idea.
Well, it's like I like to take my snack abilities and put them in high regard too, but it's like I usually come home with a giant Eagle bag full of just like a bunch of shit. So what's your one?
Smart Food popcorn, white cheddar.
Really?
I could eat a whole party size bag in the right environment.
Smart Food popcorn, white cheddar. All right. I mean, that's a good answer. Some people are just like, God, I have no idea. But that's good. Okay, so I
came ready.
I know you did come ready. I was surprised. I thought you were going to be like, oh, the death row meal. Like, I don't know.
Oh no, I have that ready.
Okay, so if you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
I would love to talk to Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah,
I just really would.
I probably could have guessed. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? If someone is such a foodie, you got to call yourself a foodie.
Yeah.
To be able to talk to him about things, be a foodie and a journalist. That's the guy right there.
Yeah,
It's like, who's going to do it better than him?
exactly.
I have been watching Somebody Feed Phil.
Okay,
on
I've watched a
Netflix.
few episodes.
And at first I was like, I don't like this guy too much. Like, he's a little bit too quorky, but I really love him. He's
Okay.
just like a goof.
Yeah.
I love that he's not like a professional chef or
No.
anything like that. I like that he's just a regular guy. But yeah, I thought that was pretty good.
Oh, Ina Garten too. I'm a huge Ina Garten fan.
Who's that?
She was Barefoot Contessa on Food Network.
Barefoot Contessa.
Yeah, she has like short, dark hair.
I'm sure if I seen her,
Oh, you
I
should
would
look
know.
her up. She's amazing.
All right, I will do that. Well, Jess, it was a pleasure to talk to you.
You too.
This was a long podcast.
I
but
love it.
It felt like it went. I can't believe it. I swear I looked down and I was like, at first it was 45 minutes, and then I looked and I was like 2:02. I was like, geez.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was a great. I think it was a great episode. I think you did very, very well in explaining what exactly you do, because, like, you know, like you said, people might look at your Instagram and think like, oh, do you just eat food all day and just post a photo? But you know, there's much more in the background,
Right.
And I think it's interesting. But you know, like, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to do?
Right. Well, I have a podcast of my own.
Yes.
I'm starting the second season. Hopefully that should go live this week or next.
Okay.
It's called Hungry Girl Big Podcast.
Okay.
That's a goal of mine. And then, you know, main goal, have a book and a TV show.
I mean, what more can you want, right?
Exactly.
Take a second and tell everyone where they could find all of your work and follow you and, you know, all that whole 9 yards.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Hungry Girl Big City, no I in girl. I have a website, Hungry Girl Big City, spelled the same way, .com. I have a blog on there, some snapshots of my work, some testimonials. Hungry Girl Big Podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you can listen to a podcast. And yeah, I think that's really it. I have a Facebook page, but Instagram is probably where I'm the most active.
Yeah, Facebook is trash.
Yeah, no.
Everyone else that's listening, thank you as usual. Long podcast. If you made it all the way through, I appreciate it. If you could, please take a second to subscribe, rate, and review to I'll Call You Right Back and Hungry Girl Big Podcast while you're at it. And, you know, check out her work. Follow her on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at I'll Call You Right Back. And, you know, every week we're here Thursdays pumping out good episodes. So thanks for listening, and I'll call you right back.